across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. Asher, I fear I'm slightly losing my voice here.
Yeah, you are slightly, but you'll be able to hold it together for the next 3 hours, hopefully. Ceteris paribus.
I was about to say I might sound a little throaty, but then again, that's just
you're coming down with something, because, you know, you've got to be careful, you know.
Yeah, indeed. OK, the number to call is 0344 499 1000. Look, I'm just going to get straight into it, simply because the big story of the week has got to be Israel and Iran. I'm going to stick my cards on the table straight away. Look, first of all, Iranian Special Forces, or Hamas as they're otherwise known, attacked Israel on the 7th of October. I'm not so worried about that this week, and I'll tell you why. Because, frankly, Israel has dealt with Hamas, at least to a greater or lesser extent. Obviously, there is still the issue with us funding Hamas and funding Iran through overseas aid. I'm going to say one thing, and you can agree with me or disagree with me, but I think this overseas aid thing, what has happened in Gaza has proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that overseas aid is almost always a force for bad. Now, I'm not going to say that it's bad when, say, there's a flood or an earthquake or something like that. What happens when you've got these countries on overseas aid for long periods of time? It emboldens, it empowers corrupt and bad governments, which keeps people poor. But anyway, let's park all that for a minute, because we can talk about Israel, we can talk about Gaza, we can talk about Hamas all day. Iran, specifically, I think that President Trump was right to join the Israelis in bombing the nuclear sites, simply because Iran has been a rogue nation, a rogue state for a very long time. I've got a number of friends of mine who are Iranian, and also people who visited Iran as well. And what's really interesting about it, everyone who's ever been always says to me, now, by the way, quick caveat, this is anecdotal evidence. That is to say, I've only spoken to about 10 people, but the people that I have spoken to have always said to me, Iran is a perfectly lovely place, full of very, very lovely people, and the problem is its government is just a bunch of extremist lunatics. Now, what has happened historically is that Iran has basically ignored its own government. But what's happened more recently is, because of COVID, because of the sanctions, because of this failed nuclear program, and I say failed because it's rendered Iran a pariah, the people in Iran are getting poorer and poorer and poorer, and they are desperate to be rid of this nutter government. Ali Khamenei, the Ayatollah, no, the idiot Ali Khamenei has destroyed a rich and successful and vibrant country. Civic society destroyed, economics destroyed, women who had rights before all rolled back, and what we have now seen is the British left not merely defending Ali Khamenei's right to subjugate women, to execute homosexuals, to run a racist and corrupt regime, but they're also arguing very, very strongly that he should be allowed to continue to have his nuclear weapons. What happened to CND? What happened to burn the bra? What happened to this idea of everybody being equal? Now, I know that the British left hate anything Western, but surely, in your twisted loathing of market capitalism, in your twisted loathing of democracy, in your twisted loathing of free speech and family values and Christianity, surely Ali Khamenei can't be the poster boy for what you want as an alternative. They're forcing women to walk around with what amounts to sacks over their heads in order to satisfy Islamic rules that simply do not exist. A burqa is to Islam what a raincoat is to Christianity. That is to say that in many Christian countries people wear raincoats, and in some Christian countries people wear burqas and hijabs and all this sort of thing, but there is nothing in the Quran that says that you have to wear
1,000 people a year, you know, a lot of gay young men in the town on a crane. When they first took power, they cleared the minefields, they used child soldiers, but when they were too small to carry weapons and that, they just ran them across the minefields to blow, and they gave them a little key, so this is your key to heaven, and tens of thousands of kids between the ages of 10 and 12 were ran across minefields to...
So here we go.
This is who you're dealing with.
So all I can say now is I genuinely do not understand why the British left were out defending Iran, supporting Ali Khamenei's right to abuse women, execute homosexuals and run his country into the ground. But we're joined now by Kenneth O'Keefe, a former US Marine and Gulf War veteran who presumably can offer an explanation for this. So look, Kenneth, first of all, I think we all agree now that we were lied to over Iraq and Afghanistan. So I get the whole idea of not invading. But what I don't understand
it's not a lie in this case,
is why we shouldn't stop the Iranians getting nuclear weapons, and moreover, why we shouldn't form some sort of solidarity with the oppressed Iranians who want rid of their crazed government.
So, having been to Iran several times, and having been to Palestine, and actually being a U.S. Marine who fought in war as a machine gunner in combat, I can tell you, first off, those of us that have been to war, unlike those who have not been to war, perhaps present company included, they seem to be a lot more aggressive about war. But I can tell you 22 American service members a day who committed suicide because they went off to fight an illegal, immoral, war criminal war that was a war of aggression based on a false pretext from a lying media. They don't feel good about that.
What about the 350 Marines blown up by Iran?
They kill themselves.
What about the 350 US Marines
hang on, Kenneth.
You're a talker.
Hang on a second.
Your own brothers in arms were murdered by Iran. 350 US Marines blown up and murdered.
Hang on, I'm confused.
Did you fact check that like you did the 40 beheaded babies?
Right.
Right, the 40 beheaded babies.
Hang on a second.
Did you
Stop.
fact check that? Remember that last time there?
Right,
that last
I'm
time
confused.
Change the record.
All right, I'm confused because what I said was we were lied to about Iraq and Afghanistan, something that you repeated after I said it. I mean, it's not as if I said it was particularly groundbreaking, but nonetheless, we appear to agree on that. I don't understand where this link is between first of all, supporting the Iranian people rising up, secondly, denigrating through bombing the nuclear capability of Iran. That's not the same as a war and indeed an invasion like Iraq and Afghanistan. So if you're listing the reasons why we shouldn't repeat Iraq and Afghanistan, don't I just say to you, we're not repeating it?
So once again, if you have your way and your little cohort there who would never fight in a war because he's a coward, nonetheless.
Hang on,
if the chicken hawks have their way,
look,
they will send others.
No, hang on a second. Let's not throw out insults, right? Yeah. So first of all, cohort is a group of people. He's a co-host, not a cohort. So first, you ought to learn.
I think the war's affected you a bit. You know what I mean? It's affected you.
But secondly, look. I've not been rude to you. There is no need to be rude to me, and there's no need to be rude to Asha. Do you want, and now look, do you want to have a conversation in which you explain to me, why we shouldn't be denigrating Iran's nuclear capability?
We can't hear you, your mic's down.
Or do you just want to hurl insults at people? There we go, I'll let him answer.
Based on the same false intelligence that Netanyahu gives your talking points to. Yeah. The fact is, the United States has been committing more terrorism than any other nation on the planet, and it's doing so at the behest of the Greater Israel Project, given to them by those who control Jeffrey Epstein and have tapes about these traitors raping children, and the world knows it. Cat Williams.
Irrational blabber.
No, hang on a second.
This is gibberish.
Pull it down again. I'm genuinely just asking you why we shouldn't denigrate Iran's nuclear program. We're on Jeffrey Epstein. We're on US Marines committing suicide. We've decided that he's a cohort, he's a coward. I'm just asking you why we shouldn't denigrate Iran's nuclear capability.
The West are the problem. And the fact is, we made the same sad excuses.
Is he pissed?
It's not right, really. I mean,
22 American service members a day committing suicide, and you two chicken hawks would send.
No, hang on a second. Stop him again. I don't understand this interview. I don't understand this guy. I brought him on to ask him a genuine question. I don't think I've been remotely rude. By the way, for the listeners, we've had to mute him.
He's still shouting, though, so he won't even be able to hear this. It's like Yosemite Sam, you know, the cartoon character, and he's just spouting gibberish.
He's really kicking off here,
yeah,
right?
I mean,
Okay. Let's give him one more chance. Let's just give him one more chance. Right. Listen. Kenneth, I promise you, I'm not having a go at you. You've called me a coward, a chicken hawk, and all that sort of thing. Right, fine. I'll accept that. Why shouldn't we denigrate Iran's nuclear?
Shut up. Tell that other one to shut up and let me answer the question.
Well, because you're just shouting. You're just shouting gibberish.
Do so respectfully.
You're just blabbering, aren't you? Just answer the question.
Okay. Why shouldn't we denigrate? Fourth time.
Wow,
Why shouldn't we
try and be succinct with your points?
Why
if I ever meet
blabbering
you in person,
crap.
I will slap you like the little boy that you are, the child that you are.
I'll tell you what I think you should do. I'll tell you what I think you should do.
Were you really a Marine? Because you don't seem like
stop a second. Stop a second. By the way, let's just remind our viewers and listeners of something. This obnoxious moron that we brought on the show with his ridiculous hat and his even more ridiculous abusive beliefs. It's interesting, isn't it? You go straight for the Jew. Explain what the problem is specifically with Asher. Go for it, big boy. Go for it. Mr. Marine, I'll come round your house and give you a slap. I'll put your backside that hard you'll have to brush your teeth with it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, you guys, dumb and dumb. I thought you guys had it with James.
I asked
but now
you a
James
question. Are you going to answer the question? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll tell you what we'll do. What question do you want to answer? Because I failed as an interviewer to even get the first question answered.
He's deranged.
Right. Okay, so we failed on question one. Why not denigrate Iran's nuclear program? We've struggled with that one. Let's go for the next one. He'll love this one. Right. Okay. Relatives of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza have today appealed to President Trump to replicate his decisive action in Iran to bring home hostages and make the Middle East great again. I can't wait for this. Should Donald Trump intervene to get hostages released by Hamas?
Well, he might want to look into the Hannibal Directive, where Israel killed most all of the people on that day, fateful day that's been called the day of 40 beheaded babies. Have you heard of the Hannibal Directive? That would be important.
Let me tell you, Kenneth, there are so many of your things I've never heard of. But
you've never heard of the Hannibal Directive?
Any thoughts on the question?
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump might want to consider the official policy of the Hannibal Directive by the
Why don't you answer the question about the hostages that we asked you?
They would rather have dead Israelis than have hostages.
But then why are they fighting so hard to get the hostages back?
Thousands of hostages in Palestine.
Yeah.
Thousands,
why are they trying so hard to get the hostages back if they don't care?
Did you hear about the memo?
You can't hear your own irrational arguments.
For the right to rape.
Your mind's all fogged and you can't understand what you're saying. It's just like coming out like sewage.
I'm going to be pull him down for a second. I'm going to be genuinely honest here. And I don't say this in order to insult you, but I really do think that you need some support, because it's very, very clear to me that whatever's happened to you as a Marine, and by the way, I think you ought to be congratulated for your service. I mean, I'm finding it incredibly difficult to conduct a conversation with you. You're really struggling. You're flying off the handle. You're getting angry for absolutely no reason. All I wanted to ask you was some simple questions. You think that I've been rude to you? I haven't. All I'm just asking is this one. Do you believe that President Trump should intervene and attempt to get the hostages freed? I mean, it's not that difficult to... In fact, say anything you want. I'll just let you get on with it.
Donald Trump took $100 million from Miriam Adelson, and before that, Sheldon gave him $100 million. He should be tried for treason and hung according to the law.
But what about the hostages? What about the hostages? Any thoughts on the hostages?
There's thousands of Palestinian hostages without due process.
So would it make sense, Kenneth?
So they should keep the Israeli ones.
No, hang on a second. Is it possible?
The Palestinians count for nothing, and one Israeli life is more precious than all of the Goyim combined.
Okay.
This is the world we live in, isn't it?
Okay. Do you think?
Not really. No, you live in an.
By the way, war propaganda is a war crime, by the way. Did you know that? According to Nuremberg,
you live in a different world, man. I don't know what world.
War crime. By that logic, you two are guilty.
we war criminals now? Should we be in front of the Hague?
Ignoring all the evidence.
Well, let's go and give ourselves into the
Hang on,
Hague.
I've asked you two bloody questions.
Maybe you should run us into town like John Wayne.
Stop.
Howdy, partner.
I've asked this bloke on. I've asked him two bloody questions, and now I'm a coward, war criminal, chicken hawk, and he's going to beat me up, right? In what way are we not broadcasting someone who's having mental health problems? Cut him off. I don't want it anymore. This guy's got a problem. This guy's got an issue. I genuinely think that somebody as delusional as that should not be on this channel again. No. I'm completely confused.
He's a danger to himself, if anything.
We had. What was he on about?
He was like this last time. I mean, there's no reason with him. Let's just go to the phone lines and make sense of everything.
I'm disappointed by that.
Well, I would expect that's what he's like. That's what the bloke's like. That's his shtick.
I was told we had an expert coming on who was an ex-US Marine who knew what he was on about. We're just going on about all sorts.
I mean, like I said, Iran set a bomb that killed, I think, 350 US Marines or 150.
Is he normally like that?
Yeah, no, that's his normal, that's his shtick. Mark in London, look, we got a call. Give us a ring, 0344 499 1000. Tell us what you think about it.
He didn't like you very much.
He can't stand me, does he? He's going on, he's like, he needs to change the record. Mark in London.
Yeah, hello, mate.
Right,
is Kenneth still there?
No,
I've got no idea.
Well, no, he doesn't know where he is.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm tempted to sedate him if he was in the studio.
To have been on why he was on, because personally, I think he's an absolute well, I can't say what I really think.
But he's one of those people. Do you know what annoys me, Mark? He's one of those people who he's come on to shout abuse. Right, because we had coward and chicken hawk and all this. All I asked him was about... I mean, I thought I was asking some fairly reasonable questions.
What is a chicken hawk?
A chicken hawk is somebody who's not brave enough to fight themselves but will send people into battle.
Oh, yeah.
If he's willing to pay for a flight over to London, he can come over and I'll slap him. And I'll slap him back into the days of his Marines.
We'll send him your offer.
I find it worrying. I think it's PTSD related, if I'm being honest.
It's not right, really, to have him on in future. I think he should not be coming on.
Mark, can I ask you this question? So I'm gonna try, because in lieu of a sensible guest, I'm going to ask you. Look, what Kenneth made as a point amongst all the fluff was that we have mucked up in the Middle East quite significantly in terms of things like Iraq, in terms of the fact that we've kept dictatorial regimes in power. We are the oppressors of Gaza because of the amount of money that we've given to Hamas. Is there not an argument to say, hey, cool off, let's just leave them alone to do their own thing for a bit?
Well, the thing is, we've always got involved in war, so has America, and that since day dot. Like, sometimes we should keep that, but with something like Iran and that, no. You can't have a regime like that.
Well, they have missiles that can reach here. Never mind Israel; they can get thousands of miles to here.
The Donald Trump argument is this: look, I'm not getting involved in foreign wars. What I'm doing is denigrating the nuclear capability of Iran. That is a completely separate category of things. It's not an invasion. It's not imperialism. It's not telling people what to do in their own country. It's simply saying there are international treaties, that there should be no new nuclear powers created, and we're merely enforcing that treaty.
And a lot of the Arab countries and other countries are coming out publicly and going, Israel has got to calm down, and in private they're going, well done, Israel, you've really helped the world out here. That's what's going on.
Yeah, the thing is, the biggest deterrent of war has actually been nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Because everyone is frightened that someone's going to press a button.
Yeah, and if Iran get it, they're a terrorist group that will have nuclear weapons, and they will press it because they believe that it's a religious belief, it's a philosophy, that they will not mind committing suicide. We see that on, we're just what people get up to who have that ideology. Why wouldn't their leader...
Norman, I'm going to throw this out, and I'll let Mark and Asher respond to this, because you're going to explode when you hear this. Not like Kenneth, but Norman Tebbit...
Nuclear.
I remember Norman Tebbit once saying that he believed that war in Europe had been averted because of nuclear weapons, and he believed that nuclear weapons in the Middle East could do the same as what it done for Europe. I instinctively hate that idea, but Mark, your view?
It's absolute total rubbish.
Why?
I'll tell you what, if some of these countries had nuclear weapons, the rest of the world wouldn't be safe.
All right, well, thank you, Mark. I'm going to give the final word to Asher. I'm going to say to all of you, I don't know whether I'm being overly sensitive, but it's amazing, isn't it, the way these people always go for the Jew. So anyway, Asher, you're today...
Well, I mean, do you think these terrorist group, the ones that did 9/11/7/7, if they could get hold of a suitcase bomb, wouldn't do that sort of thing? And Iran haven't got sleeper cells within this very nation. So, you know, it's a very dangerous... And anyway, apart from that, they can fire rockets this distance to it.
I'll tell you what upsets me and what I was driving at originally. I'm happy to criticise Israel, done it loads of times. I always say I'm not pro-Israeli because I always think if I disagree with France, I don't believe in France's abolition as a result of it. But I do think there is one thing that we've got to be.
But you would have supported France against the Nazis.
Yeah, I think
do you know what I mean? And it's
you've got to be deadly serious when you're talking about the dangers here of nuclear proliferation, and you can argue. Let's not get involved in Iran's internal affairs. Fine. You can say sanctions don't work. You can say Israel provokes people. You can say all that. But the idea of Ali Khamenei having a big red button where he can nuke me, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to be wholly selfish and say no, never. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk on the day that Matt Thornton turned 24.
Matt's our cabin boy. Come on, Matt.
He's there kneeling in front of the ladies, isn't he? Which is what he normally does, if I'm being honest, on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Right, come on over here.
Matt. Yeah, you're working on his birthday, so he's very depressed.
So you're depressed working on your birthday. Do they give you time and a half?
No, I don't even get paid.
He don't get paid, does it for free? Yeah.
No, he doesn't even work here. What he does is he just likes putting the microphones up the top
under the desk
of the ladies, and he basically just pretends to work here. But anyway, thank you. I just want to say, actually, this is a good opportunity to thank the team that support us all year round. So thank you to everyone.
It's not
in the
them;
gallery.
they're at home actually. That's
And thank you to Matt Thornton, who's done various bits and bobs, and actually is my taxi buddy, and most of the time. No, we're not going to reveal that. Sorry. The gallery are asking me to reveal something. I'm not going to reveal anything. But I will say that I brought in the hat last week.
There's an injunction on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's not talk about that. This is not the BBC, after all. Right. Okay. I just want to say before I go any further, Look, I absolutely love this initiative that had been set up by Jess Gill, Saskia Teague. Teague.
I'll take that. Teague.
Okay, but these guys have set up the Women's Safety Initiative. Now, the Women's Safety Initiative is something that we've deliberately been broadcasting all about time and time again because we want to support it. Now, look, before we go any further, Jess and Saskia, why don't you very quickly explain to us what it is? Many of the viewers and listeners know already, but it's such an important project. We've had the Free Speech Union on loads of times, and we want to support the Women's Safety Initiative. So, fire away.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support. It's always a pleasure going on. So the Women's Safety Initiative was launched only a few months ago, and our sole purpose is to educate and empower women about how mass immigration is impacting their safety. We see headline after headline after headline where it's often foreign nationals committing crimes against women, and we want to raise attention to that.
I'll tell you something that amazed me. I think we were talking about it last time with somebody from the Women's Safety Initiative, but it might have been Anna McGovern, so forgive me. But I was watching something on the BBC where there was this woman saying that she was in her lycra running, and she said twice a man shouted abuse at her and spat at her.
Yeah.
And during the entire interview, nobody asked for a description of the man. And what was amazing, and what I find appalling about this, Saskia, is that there's two sides to this. Number one, women don't feel safe on the streets. But number two, the allegation is that all men are responsible, and actually the problems are largely as a result of third world immigration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are too scared to say how they feel because they get called, you know, racist, far right, you get called a Nazi even. I think it's time to address the real problem, and I think what we're doing, we are making women feel far more comfortable in standing up for what they believe in. And to say that you want, my aim with the Women's Safety Initiative, obviously, as a total, is mass deportations now. That's the only real solution to what we've got going on. Other things that we're doing now, like the CCTV and taxi campaign, those are things, measures to put in place to protect the situation that we've got now. We simply can't go on and not have any measures in place to protect people. I mean, I couldn't go out on a walk in my area for 6 months.
Yes.
I was walking home, I've lived there for 23 years, I've lived there my whole life. I was walking home, had two foreign men approach me, and it was almost like as I walked to them, I knew what was going to happen.
Yes.
And I prepared myself, and they were laughing at me, jeering at me, shouting at me, so I stepped to the side, and they made me walk through them, they come up right close to me, harassing me. I ran home crying. And did I call the police?
Well, there's no point.
Because the police don't serve the British people anymore. We know that. We know that in full abundance.
So look, you're talking about mass deportations, and I think people get nervous about that. I've got to be honest with you. My first thing that I would do, we've got to deal with this problem about being stateless. I think we can deal with it. We managed to deal with it with Shamima Begum. We can talk about it more, but it's a bit of a dry topic, so maybe not. But first of all, I think the war's over, it's time to go home, needs to be the principle. And I've said this before today, loads of times, and everyone's going to be yawn. He says this every time it comes up. But when I did a tiny bit to help out with Ukraine, very tiny amount, I met genuine refugees. And they were women and children, and they would come, and they would be as close to their menfolk as they could be. Now, for some of them, those were the Eastern European communities of places like Gloucester and Slough. Yeah. But for the vast majority, it was going 5 miles over the border, 10 miles over the border, and the minute the war, it wasn't even the war stopped, the minute it was safe to return home, they returned home.
Well, that's refugees. It means to take refuge. So when the war finishes, you go back, but it doesn't seem to mean that anymore.
But now what we're talking about is the minute that there is any sort of strife in your country, you're allowed to pick wherever you want to go. I mean, this amazing deal that if Guido Fawkes is to be believed, this amazing deal that Keir Starmer's done, which is when a boat comes over, say 100 people a day come over, he will deport a percentage of them. He wants to deport as many as 40%. That's 40 people, right? Basic maths. But France will accept those 40 people back as long as the British Embassy in Paris accepts exactly the same number of refugees. So that 40 will be deported to France and another 40 will be selected from the list in Paris to be flown over at the British taxpayers' expense. It's still a bloody 100 people.
I know. I think for me as well, going back to, you know, refugees, there are obviously genuine people that have been displaced from war and have gone through absolutely horrific atrocities.
But that doesn't mean, you know, just because you're at war doesn't mean you get to get asylum. You know what I mean? You got to, sometimes you got to fight in your own war.
But which is why I hate seeing, you know, we all see it, the videos of these men coming over. It makes an absolute mockery of those people that do want to escape and do.
It's for like the Rohingyas and subjugated peoples, not for young men who don't want to go to war.
It makes a mockery of all those
people. The reality is, had there been a genocide in Gaza, and we can go through the whole, is it a genocide or is it a war thing?
Well, it's not a genocide,
had there been a genocide in Gaza, had there been a genocide in Nagorno-Karabakh, had there been, had it got any worse, we couldn't have taken those people in. If Azerbaijan had committed a genocide against the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, we would not have been able to take in the Armenian Christians because we would have been too busy dealing with Albanians from a country that's, it's even in NATO.
But why aren't the UN anyway pressuring Egypt to take in refugees? Because of course the UN are
not refugees. That's the problem.
Well, they're not refugees, yeah. But I mean, I'm talking about in the Gaza war, the women and children. Why aren't the UN saying to Egypt, take them in? But of course they don't want them in because they're with Hamas.
But for me, my very simple point on the mass deportations is, first of all, when the war's over, you go home. Yeah. I think has to be principle number one. Principle number two, I'm very sorry. If you were born... No, actually, why am I saying I'm very sorry? I'm not sorry at all.
You shouldn't apologise.
No. Anybody born outside the United Kingdom who's convicted of any criminal offence at all, it's time to go home.
And the public agree with that as well. I think polling shows that 80% of the public agree with that, and the other... like 20% are probably, the ones committing the issue.
I think, Jess, I told this story last time of when I was on the Jeremy Vine show. But very nice bloke, actually. And I was with Yasmin Alibi Brown. And if you remember, there was those, I've told this story so many times to get bored of it, but it's worth telling, of the attitude and the mindset of the left. Basically, Virgin Atlantic and BA were refusing to fly these Jamaican criminals back to Jamaica because when they fly criminals to deport them, the airline reads what they've been convicted of. And basically, Virgin and BA said, we are not allowing these people anywhere near our staff, even shackled. We're not allowing it. So the Foreign Office decided to charter this plane and deported them. And Yasmin Alibi Brown said to me, what you have to understand, these people are children. And I said, they're not children, they're adults. She went, they used to be children. And I thought,
Welsh?
If you can't deport people who are current or former children, then you're not going to be able. No. But it's remarkable. But here's the thing, Jess. Right, I'm going to throw this at you like the lefties would do. Come on, it's just a conspiracy theory. It's not dangerous for women. Question mark.
I mean, the statistics show that it is. I think it's foreign nationals are 3.5 times more likely to commit sex offences than the British population.
Only 3.5.
Well, there's different nationalities, like Afghanis was a lot more, wasn't
20
it?
times more
20
likely.
times more
That's
likely.
insane.
So different cultures where, there's more of this stuff goes on, especially, for the infidel and things like that.
Yeah, and I believe that 1 in 4 sex crimes are committed also by foreign nationals, which the left always argue, what about the other, 3 in 4? But they fail to recognise
the proportions.
Also, but if we just stopped immigration, if we reversed immigration, our radical extremist mass immigration policy, then we could reduce sex crimes by a quarter.
Four times it's
By the way, I always think the best argument against that, 1 out of 4 sex crimes are committed by migrants, and they go, yeah, but 3 out of 4 weren't. Philomena Konk quoted exactly the same statistic. She said 40% of road traffic accidents are caused by people who drink drive. That means 60% are by people who are sober. Therefore, statistically, you are safer with a drunk driver than you are with a safe driver. Now, just to be clear about this, Philomena Konk was a comedy show. And
it just goes to show statistics can do anything.
And yet, well, it's fairly obvious, because when you say 1 in 4, well, the population of the United Kingdom is not a quarter of people who arrived in the past 5 years.
But you get the mass media like Emily Maitlis, and she's not mass media now, but you know what I mean. You get those people who obviously know that, but they sort of deny it. They're willfully.
What would happen, Saskia? What would happen if we discovered tomorrow a group of Christian men who were going into Pakistani Muslim areas, plying children with alcohol and drugs, raping them, sodomizing them with glass bottles, while saying to them, and selling them to their friends, pimping them out under the age of 16, and saying to them, the reason I believe I can rape you is I'm a Christian, you're a Muslim. What do you believe the response to that would be amongst the media?
I think it would be headline news. Everybody would know. I mean, we all know anyway.
Would there be a civil war?
All I do know on that is there would be absolute media outrage, and I think we all know there is an attack at the moment on Christian straight white men. That's a very real thing. People don't like it. You know, in the UK, if you identify as that, you're seen as lesser than. But if you identify as all these other different religions, this, that, the other, you're seen as more socially accepted. So I do think if something horrific like that was to happen, well, they wouldn't get there in the first place.
But why? But Jess, here's the bit that. So we all know the answer to the question. Saskia, I think, has articulated it in a generous way. Jess, what I don't understand is why we can have a Home Secretary, a Prime Minister, a leader of leaders of political parties, First Ministers of countries, who I think, if they were to be honest with themselves, would admit that the reason why we talk down this is because the perpetrator's a Muslim, and the reason that it would go off like a bomb if it was the other way around is because the perpetrator's are white. And so you have white people, you have, ostensibly Christian people, at least nominally, saying, I am deliberately, it's just racist persecution. It's apartheid, it's not apartheid, it's discrimination. It's two-tier policing. Clearly, it's not as bad as being in South Africa, but the direction of travel is not good. It's basically saying this crime is acceptable because the victims are white, and that crime would be unacceptable because the victims are black.
One of the key takeaways from the Casey report that's just been released is the fact that the statistic that the majority of grooming gangs were white, that was a complete myth, that was debunked. And it's interesting how the left really took on that statistic. They used it to dismiss the stories of grooming gang victims, these girls who have been through the most awful things you could imagine, raped by dozens of men in their teenage years.
Oh, yeah. There's also white rapists. But of course, the other thing is that's an obvious point to make, and we're going to go to a break, but keep talking about this. Look, imagine there are 100 people in Britain, right? 50 of which were rapists, right? One of whom was a recent immigrant. Well, at least there'd only be 49 if you got rid of the recent immigrants. Yeah. But what I don't understand is this concept, which is, even though this person is a sex offender, we have to pay that price for a multicultural society.
So wrong.
Well, I don't want a multicultural society. No. I don't want uncontrolled immigration. I don't want slave wages. And so, what's it a price worth paying for?
But are they doing it for cowardice reasons, or maybe evil reasons, rather than an ideology?
Well, you believe it's evil. I believe it's cowardice.
Yeah, well, it's political cowardice, isn't it? Maybe. They'll lose their votes.
Hold that thought, because we've got two brilliant guests from the Women's Safety Initiative. Why don't we just continue to talk about this issue? Because genuinely, I want you to all support this Women's Safety Initiative. By the way, as we go to the break, what are your web details? Where can people donate?
Just go onto the Women's Safety _UK on Twitter, and then you can find all our details there. Okay,
I'll tell you what we'll do. Both Asha and I will tweet those details over the break, and we'll be back talking to the Women's Safety Initiative. Please get your calls in 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah.
I wish what you just said then, Ash, had actually gone out.
Could you imagine?
You can just detect it, you know what I mean?
Okay, so now I want to just ask you, both of you, what do you see as the big challenges next for the Women's Safety Initiative? Because we have noticed, because we've been watching you, that zoom lens camera. No, we've been watching you, and look, at the end of the day, you've been dismissed as racist, extremist, far right, and people just haven't engaged with your issues.
But that means they're doing a good job because you're affecting
people have,
them,
but the powers that be have not.
You know, I actually don't think that's as big of an issue as it's made out to be. I think there is that vocal minority of rabid leftists who deny this issue. Yeah. But overall, the amount of support we've received has been amazing.
Even when we go out with like doing our posters and stuff, I don't think we've had one bad comment yet. We've had a lot of people cheer us on, men, women, people from actually all different, backgrounds, cultures.
The public are with you. It's just the media and these certain elites aren't. But it makes it seem.
You'd never find a lefty who would sit there and go, "It is your duty to be raped if that's what it takes to keep a society multicultural." No. They'd never say that.
Well, that's what they believe.
Yeah, it is what they believe.
That one, what's the name? MP tweeted, for the good of diversity. Shut up. Who was that? It was an Owen Jones. Naz Shah. It was Owen Jones. She said it was a mistake. It was a parody account of Owen Jones.
There was a. That's right. There was a parody account which said
she retweeted
it. Rape is a price worth paying for a multicultural society, and the person doing it just to see how many people retweeted. But so you think that the whole far right label kind of doesn't have any traction anymore? I mean, you upset and offended?
Oh my goodness, no. It's a bit like the boy who cried wolf, and I always say now, the more labels, the better. Keep them coming. I don't care, not because I think the implementation of what people are saying is true, but I think it just shows actually you're frightened of the truth that I'm willing to say.
Well, even the Prime Minister accused the Southport writers of being far-right people brought in, and it was shown to be incorrect by the police report.
But I mean, we've talked about this as presenters before today. I think I'm losing my voice, by the way. When the police knock on our door, which presumably they will do, although I think it's probably becoming less likely now, it is our duty to stand up because what they want, what the police want, what the Crown Prosecution Service wants, what the government wants, is to get some high-profile beatings so that other people fall into line. And so I think it would be my duty, I don't know what you think, Asha, to say, well, I'm afraid you are just going to have to lock me up because I'm pleading not guilty and going all the way.
I agree, they should just lock you up. I would agree in that.
Even when I've been home sometimes, I've got home from work and I've seen a police car outside my home, and I do think, oh my goodness, is this time?
Is it?
Because me and my mum were very vocal online about how we feel, and you do have to think like, oh my goodness, is this my time? But
could again, be a non-crime hate, whatever it is.
Well, exactly. But for me, the thought of staying silent, it would just, for me, like, I want to have children one day. I don't want them to grow up in an
this is the question I was asked.
I feel complicit in the destruction of my country to stay silent.
I'll tell you what I feel, Saskia. I'll tell you what I feel, Jess. And maybe this is me going over the top. And I don't say this in order to make anyone chuckle. I've never been a young woman, so I don't know those experiences. But
you should try it one day. It's really quite liberating.
But it does strike me. It does strike me that the rights of women are declining. And what upsets me more than anything else, as somebody who never would have described myself as a feminist at all, it feels like women achieved equal rights for 10 minutes. And then the trans lobby and the uncontrolled immigration lobby and the Islamic fascist lobby all joined forces to crush women's rights. And what worries me is you could always, when I was a kid, moan about the fact that there was the odd thing where women were being oppressed. But the direction of travel was positive. The direction of travel is negative. It is not today universally accepted that women are equal to men in British politics. It is not universally accepted.
Yeah, it's a massive shame. It's like, for example, when I was younger, it was just the norm in Bolton, which I don't know what kind of norm that would be, considering what Bolton's like. But, like, girls would go outside wearing, like, tight clothing. They'd wear crop tops at, like, 14. They'd position themselves in a vulnerable situation because it was, you know, it was safe where I was growing up.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, I don't feel comfortable going outside with my arms or legs on display. You know, I need to cover up because I'm worried about the attention it will attract. And I just think, you know, every time I go out, I currently live in Tottenham, which is a very not nice area of London. Every time I go out, I face some kind of harassment, even to the point where when I have to catch a bus at night, even though it's a 10-minute walk, from the tube station to the bus stop, I've had a man follow me. And on that exact same night, it was actually when I was coming back from doing the show, that exact same night, when I got off the bus, from the bus stop to my accommodation, another man followed me. And again, I don't think they were going to attack me, but I think it's that they didn't have any disregard. They didn't care what I thought. They just saw me as an object.
But you wouldn't care. So obviously we're going to ask you the description of the men. And by the way, you can all guess what we're going to say, but okay. But here's the thing. I've said this before. Look, you're not going to rob a corner shop if it's owned by your uncle. If you are not part of a community, you're not worried about that community being denigrated. I will tell you, I tax evaded once, right? I used to live in Brussels when I worked at the European Parliament. I don't know if I had to pay tax or not, but let me tell you, when the local council used to write to me in French, I couldn't understand what the letter said, so I threw them in the bin. Now, I didn't know who my local councillor was. I didn't know who the Belgian Prime Minister was. I didn't know what the local taxes were. I didn't know what the rules were. I was not part of that community. Now, obviously, I worked in the federal capital of the country that we were part of at the time. But the point I'm making is, I didn't know whether there was a problem with crime in my ward. I didn't know whether there was a problem with insufficient tax take in my ward because I didn't care. Right?
Like the EU itself, they can never finish their accounts.
Yeah, and my point being is, if you have moved from Syria to Bolton, the issues of Bolton are of no interest to you. Why would you care? It doesn't matter if Bolton's turning into a dump because you're not from Bolton, you don't care about Bolton, you have no love for Bolton.
Still better than Syria.
Yes.
That's the issue. You're not part of the community.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing about public shaming, right? It is shameful to groom and rape a child, but only if somebody you know has read the story. Right? It's not you will not feel any sense of personal shame if you are the only person from your family or community that lives in the UK. You can't possibly feel shame because there's nobody to be ashamed of.
Well, in certain cultures like those, the women get punished if they get raped.
Sure, but my point is, you can't feel shame because there's nobody to be ashamed in front of. And that is the nature of being disconnected from a community.
Well, I don't know if they are actually disconnected from a community. They're disconnected from the British community, but because there's been such a massive inflow of people coming over, they've created their own communities. If you look at places like Birmingham, for example, you know, you go down the street, all the signs are in, you know, their foreign language. All the
Urdu or whatever.
Yeah, all the clothes shops are like in their, you know, for garments.
Saris and so on.
Yeah, and you know, you talk about the grooming gangs, for example. You talk about when that happens. Well, a lot of these people, they did know that it was going on. That, you know, men in their community were going about it, and oftentimes the men in these communities would tell their friends, would tell their family, and at best they were complicit, and at worst they would join in.
There was that group chat of some of the wives of the men that were convicted and they were in prison, and these wives were in a group chat and they openly were, you know, downplaying everything that had happened to these, you know, women.
They blame the victims.
Yeah,
they say it's them for being not wearing it.
Yeah,
you know.
and these messages all got leaked, and it just, there is actually a massive cultural separation in this country at the moment. I just, like I say, but I don't know what the solution is.
But you haven't created integration. You've created the best way I've heard of it is when David Starkey described it as tribal areas. Because actually, what hasn't happened is you haven't had say 1 million Pakistanis move to the UK. No. You've had people from a series of individual villages, and they're transplanted one by one. When you talk about first cousin marriage, the reason for the first cousin marriage is because you marry the next young man, if you're a woman, on the list of people who need to come over.
Yeah.
And so there can't be any integration, but similarly, there can't be any, it's not just integration, you can't become British, because every generation has people from the village coming in, and you are literally transplanting. Now, I would say, if it were me, there would come a point where I would say we need our own legal system within the tribal areas. I think we're starting to see that already with two-tier policing. But I mean, ultimately, it is an established principle that when you have separate national groups so close together, you have separate governance. I could easily see there being, if you like, if you like, Manchester Stan, if you like, where they say, well, this element of Manchester is now an Islamic zone, and it will have elements of Sharia law within it. You think that sounds mad, but that has happened.
I used to know a Manchester Stan.
That has happened right across the world. Okay, we're going to stick with the Women's Safety Initiative. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and my voice is starting to fail. 03444991000. I mean, to be fair, I've been speaking with my throat for the past 46 years.
Do it from the diaphragm.
I can't. I'm severely tongue-tied, so I can't.
Do you do a yoghurt pot workout with your tongue? Where you get a yoghurt pot and you're able to lick out all the yoghurt with just your tongue? You do that
that's
on a daily
not,
basis. No, it
that's
helps.
not an exercise, it's a pornographic film. Right? Can I show you me putting my tongue out as far as it can go?
Is that it?
Really?
Yeah, I'm not very good at. Well, let's not get into.
Mine's not that long, but it's better, isn't it?
I've been told that Asher's. Well, let's not get into that. Okay. So, what next for the Women's Safety Initiative? I mean, obviously you've got campaigns you want to do, but no, actually, I'll tell you what. What's your average week? And what's next? What you're trying to campaign on, and what do you actually do? Like, do you go out and protest things? Because I know there's been some women who've had these meetings where they've had women-only spaces and whatever. What do you get up to?
Yeah, so we're quickly growing. Again, we only started just over 2 months ago, and we've grown so much since. The goal is ultimately to establish chapters in every single part of the UK, and we've had members, we have women, coming forward, sharing their experiences in every part of the UK, and we want to unite these women, create the leftist boycott the term safe space. I think that's actually quite useful, because again, like, these women, they feel like they're alone in this situation. Yes. They feel like, they're racist or bigoted, when in reality, they speak for the majority of women.
What is the advice of the... So first of all, the left would love everywhere to be like Tottenham, right, in terms of a multicultural nirvana or whatever. What is their advice to somebody like you who says, it's a Labour government, I don't feel safe in my area, the more uncontrolled immigration we have, the more third world people we have in the country, the more dangerous it becomes. The police can't be bothered, and frankly, there is a prevailing and increasing view that if you phone the police, they'll find a reason to arrest you for being racist rather than protecting you. Probably an unfair criticism, but that's the way people feel. What is the advice the lefties are giving you?
Well, the only arguments I've had is that we're bigoted for focusing on foreign-born men and we should instead focus on all men. I just think that tactic is really, it's ineffective for one.
I find it reprehensible.
It is.
Because I'm afraid, what is going on is not going on by... And what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to apologise to you for the fact that I want to subjugate women and force you to walk around with these, I don't want to be disparaging about Islamic dress or so-called Islamic dress, but, I'm supposed to apologise for grooming gangs. I don't know anyone who's a member of a grooming gang. I know... And I'm perfectly happy to say that I don't blame Islam, I blame third world culture. But okay, people can disagree. But I think it's a double insult. Not only is your daughter being raped, but you have to apologise for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, take the messaging on the public transport, for example. You've probably seen it on the tube where it's like, stop staring, don't upskirt, stop taking pictures.
Constant instruction.
But the people who actually, need that advice aren't going to listen.
Well, probably can't read it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be effective anyway, because I've had men stare at me. I know many women who have had men take pictures of them repeatedly on the train, like Anna McGovern, for example.
Yeah, that's right,
and when she told the police, they said he's allowed to. It's a public space, which is ridiculous. He had hundreds of photos of her on his phone, and the police didn't do anything about it. There was no, legal repercussion, even though she had evidence of that.
Yeah.
So the police aren't going to do anything. But also, I do worry about the effect it has on men. I feel like, just a general, friendly social interaction between a man and a woman is now demonised because a lot of men feel like they can't approach women. That's all this advertisement
and
has,
also people
alienated.
from that culture who have integrated into British society. You can see that it's affecting them as well with these other people because they're getting tarred with the same brush.
What about that remarkable picture? It was you that showed me, Asher, or the video.
Well, don't tell them about that.
Was it Jess Phillips? Where she was, it was her re-election, and I'm just going to say this, right? There was a load of, the expert level ones with the beard and the hats and all that sort of thing, shouting abuse. The dedicated ones, not your average Muslim who goes to mosque, the proper, expert level. That's all I can say. But anyway, they're all shouting abuse during Urdu, and she's going, look at these misogynistic people doing, and you think, they're not misogynistic, they're Islamic fascists.
She only won by 600 votes. What's your views on Jess Phillips anyway? I mean, with the grooming gangs, you could see she was in a quandary, but she's really let herself down, hasn't she?
I think she's absolutely vile.
She should have resigned, shouldn't she, if she had any backbone and integrity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you not think you go guns blazing and say, I'm a woman in politics, I'm going to stand by women's rights?
And I think it would have been good for her career.
If I lose, you know what? I'm going to keep going on about women's rights. You'll have to shoot me.
But also, it would have been good for her. She could have stood for Labour leader with that integrity, but now she's really blown it because she's just gone with the Keir Starmer lot.
It's so silly because they've done the inquiry anyway, or they're going to do the inquiry anyway. So the fact
it'll be a whitewash though anyway, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me tell you what will happen at the end of the inquiry. I guarantee you, they will say that as a result of austerity, there was insufficient financial support for the police and social workers, and the Sure Start programmes were closed. Had it not been for austerity under the Conservatives, there would have been no grooming gangs existed. Fundamentally, the police, social services, the Crown Prosecution Service and the Home Office will all agree that the problem is insufficient tax revenue.
I just think it's a really sickening thought, to turn to say a 15-year-old girl who's been raped and say the government saying, oh, actually, there's not enough funding for you, whilst spending all this money on people that have arrived yesterday, giving them
$5 billion
housing.
a year.
Yeah, so you're going to look at somebody who's been raped, you're going to look at them in the face and say, there's no funding for you, but you've just arrived yesterday, and yet we can fund X, Y, Z for you. You've got to tell a mother, we don't have the resources to lock away.
We've run out of time.
We just don't have it.
And that is the Women's Safety Initiative. Saskia and Jess, congratulations.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Curtis Hinton. We're going through all of the biggest stories on the front pages. Asher, what's the start?
PM pledges protections for disabled to rescue bill. He's had a bit of a problem with his MP. People are saying he won't be running as leader in the next election. So, yeah, what's your views on Keir Starmer's future and who's going to be the next leader? It's not going to be no-brainer Rayner, is it?
I think it's going to be, I think she's... going to be way out in front of anyone else. West Streety might throw his hat in. He's been asking people.
But normally the person you expect to get in doesn't get in. Someone else,
that's true.
A back runner comes in. What do you think, man?
But isn't Angela Rayner's biggest benefit is that she's thick? I mean, from what I can hear, people are going, she's an ordinary person. It's code for thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's like a disguise for her, isn't it? She can just be under that little umbrella.
Disguise was the mint green bivouac.
Yeah.
The mint green bivouac was an error of judgment. She can never be forgiven for that.
He's only doing this because he was going to face a vote of no confidence. If
he just blows with the wind, doesn't he? Whatever he does.
He was going to lose the leadership, and so now he's backtracked and he's given in, if you like. He's given in to probably what is a Labour policy anyway. It's there's no surprise.
Is this for his sore throat? All right.
Oh, what is it?
Oh, it's a hot chocky.
Oh, it's chocolate.
Can I get a latte and a water, please, Gosson? I know it's your birthday. Curtis, do you want anything? Biscuits?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
When did that become a thing? Oh, let's just have a drinks order. Who was it? Curtis, can I tell you, the other week, somebody ordered a load of samosas, right now, and I'm not being funny, right, and I can't tell you the full details of this, but as you can imagine, because this is a live radio and television broadcast, you know, if there's ever an invasion or a war, they always go for the TV and radio studios first, so obviously, this place is quite highly secure. The bozo that sent us a load of samosas, I don't mean to be rude, but little Asian fella turned up with a bag, right? But they virtually had the bomb squad detonate the thing outside. What are you doing?
We didn't get them in the end. I bet they were beautiful.
Nobody got them. They were taken, boxed up in a bomb-proof box and destroyed. Yeah. That's what happened to them.
Yeah, Palestine Action Post members are radicalising others in jail, and before they get proscribed, they're gathering members. I mean, they need to be careful because I think it's up to 14 years in prison for being a member.
I think there's an MP that promoted Palestine Action quite recently on X.
Yeah, well, they can't do that. But I mean, are they? I mean, I would say they're terrorists. They were blowing up. Well, they're not blowing up, but destroying planes. They caused, I think, £55 million worth of damage. And it used to be one of them is out of commission now. I think possibly forever. It's just been destroyed. And it used to be the death penalty in Seal not that long ago. If you blew up the Queen's ships.
Well, my theory is this. Look, we discovered this with Irish terrorism, didn't we? If you have a society where you have multiple ethnicities together, there will be mixed loyalties, right? It is inevitable that we're going to have people now whose number one issue is the eradication of Israel and global jihad. That's just inevitable with uncontrolled immigration. My argument is we need to have a package of measures. So ban Palestinian action if you want, but also I think we should have the right to defect. And let me lay this out. I think that you will only be done for treason if you don't observe the following rules. You can register yourself as somebody who does not support the United Kingdom, and you can surrender your passport in exchange for going to the country of your choice, and you can fight for them if you wish to do that. And I think what happens is you get to the airport, you surrender your passport, you sign away your citizenship, and you formally defect. And I call it Shamima's Law. And the reason I call it Shamima's Law is because that would have clarified the situation with Shamima Begum, where you say to her, look, you are allowed to leave the country, you will never come back, you're an enemy combatant, you're formally defected.
Would you do that for any age, or would they have to be like over 18?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is about Shamima Begum, all the lefties who go, oh, but she was only 15. At the same time, she was the same age as Greta Thunberg when they were going, the world should listen to Greta. So I don't know. Look, I think what we have to start saying is there are people who now ought to defect. And I think also...
Well, I think go further than that. It shouldn't be up to them. If we see people that are an enemy of the state, even if they're British citizens, you can still have your citizenship taken away. Yeah. If you're an enemy of this country, you should have your citizenship taken away. And, you know, if there's no one who'll take you, we've got plenty of islands around.
But I'll tell you, Curtis...
They can claim asylum in one of those countries.
Curtis, this is the thing that worries me about the whole Israel-Gaza thing. I hear people all the time who know... And I include myself in this, know really very little about this dispute. I would include that. I'm an average British guy who knows as much as an average British guy would know about it. But what worries me is there's a lot of very, very angry people on the side of Hamas who probably don't think of themselves as supporting terrorism, who don't understand what's going on. And I just worry that we're just drilling into people a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. I mean, you know, Palestinian action, from what I could see, destroyed a load of RAF refuelers, which at worst are going to assist in the bombing of Iranian nuclear sites. Now, when you're talking about, you know, things like bombing Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, he used them on the Kurds, right? We also bombed...
And Israel destroyed their nuclear industry. They were making a bomb, Saddam Hussein, that was destroyed. And all the world went against them. And 10 years later, they said, oh, no, you're right to do that. And the same thing happened in Syria. Assad tried to get a nuclear bomb. Israel just stopped it. So this has happened twice before. This isn't a new thing.
But, Curtis, do we not need to go further than banning Palestinian action? We need to start explaining to people why what they are talking is absolute garbage.
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. I mean, a lot of people, they see it from the humanitarian side, where we can all sit here and say a death on either side is too much.
Yes.
We can all say that, but they don't see it from the actual side of what they're talking. Like you said, Andre, they're for one thing, but what they're actually doing is advocating for terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they only do it for that. They don't talk about Sudan. They don't talk about anywhere else.
It's because they don't know about it. That's why.
There's lots of reasons.
It's not the fad. It's not popular.
No, but that's absolutely right. I mean, people are being taught in schools and universities all about this story. Yeah. And this story is a group of Muslim people were thrown off their land by the Jews, who have been killing them and committing genocide against them ever since. Now, if that's what I believed, I'd be pretty angry as well, right? But there's no truth to any of it, and I just worry about all of this goody and baddie attitude on international affairs.
There's no youth cultures now, and this has become like the thing you do, isn't it, for some people? It's like the fashion.
Yeah,
we've got a rebel at university, and their rebellion is going with the authorities, rather than in the 60s, it was going against the man.
But this suits the government of the West at the moment. I'm not talking about America, but it suits them because people are infighting, they're not focusing on what's happening in their own country.
Divide and rule.
Exactly.
Is that why they're bringing in people from the foreign countries and everywhere to infiltrate? And then when there is a civil war, it'll be people versus people.
But you've got people on this very show tonight. Now, admittedly, he was a nutter, but on this very show tonight, there was somebody who came on who said, if you compare... West effectively said this. He didn't explicitly say it, but by saying all the problems in the world of the West, he is basically saying that whatever you think about Ayatollah Khomeini, Ali Khomeini, is not as bad as the British government. That is garbage. Garbage. These people who are sat there going, I mean, I've seen this where people go, Iran has a freer society than Britain. And you go, what are you talking about? But young people believe that. And what amazes me is when you see these young people going out on marches in the hope that we can curtail their free speech, in the hope that we can remove their democracy. I mean, if you remember, do you remember what they called Extinction Rebellion, who demanded they said they would shut down London if they didn't get the following. First of all, police do not prosecute us. That means abolition of independent policing. That we are not prosecuted for any protest we make. Abolition of an independent court. Parliament needs to follow all the rules. Abolition of democracy. And then they said they wanted a citizens' assembly, a supreme Soviet. So people were walking out saying, take away my right to free speech, take away independent policing, take away the independent courts, take away democracy, and have Britain run both judicially and in parliamentary terms, legislatively, if that's a word, by a supreme Soviet. Yeah. And they're going out marching for it.
And they get support because they're under this climate change, extinction, anti-oil, anti-gas sort of.
Well, the government has gone with it, haven't they?
know.
Deranged Miliband, you know, he doesn't look right when he's with that ukulele. He's going along with it, and they go, "Oh, we've won that, so let's pick another cause."
Let's go for something else now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's going to keep on going and going.
The reason why I say climate change is a religion is because the attitude is, yes, but I'm right.
Yeah.
Of course we have to look. Okay, I understand the argument for democracy, but what you have to understand is that my pagan religion is right.
Yeah.
Well, it is like that in the old, you know, 1,000 years ago. If you didn't pray, then you'd be punished with, you know, no harvest. It's a bit like that. The weather's going to. It's a similar modern version.
Yeah, that's right. Pray to the sun god.
Yeah,
that's basically what it is.
It's just a modern scientific version of that.
By the way, whatever happened to acid rain? Well, that was the one that was going to kill us, wasn't it? What was it?
It damaged the trees. I do remember it.
Ozone layer,
trees.
acid rain. There's been loads of them.
Yeah, and there was acid house after that.
The millennium bug. Oh, the millennium.
I actually had the millennium bug at my house in a little studio. I couldn't record audio, and I was the only person in history that ever suffered from the millennium bug.
Lest we forget the £100 billion on the millennium bug, where basically my mate said, I said, what did you do? He said, I've spent 3 years working on the millennium bug. He said, what did you do? He said, we used to sit at HSBC, 100 of us, playing, Network Doom. You know that computer game where you go around shooting zombies or whatever.
But they were worried that, you know, you'd buy a tin of beans, open it, and it'd be sweet corn. That's what they were worried with millennium bug. So, you know, nothing happened in the end.
It's what, like a technical issue? Was that what it was?
Yeah, well, they were worried because the computers, when it goes to 2000, they hadn't put in the chips that it would do that. And they were going,
what they've done with the date, they hadn't put 19 in the date.
Because they made it in 1975 and by 2000 we won't need it. But
what they claimed they weren't concerned about.
It's like a history lesson for them.
It is.
Yeah, what they claimed to be concerned about, which they weren't, was that when it went to 00, the computer would assume it was 1900 and that
the world would blow up.
And that the computer didn't exist yet, therefore it would delete itself. I mean,
just systems would all not work. And it did. I couldn't record WAV files. And I thought, what's going on? And I put my computer back a few days, and it was fine. So I did actually suffer from the millennium bug.
So you went back to 1900?
I just put it back to 1995 or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was a stupid computer.
But can I tell you, there was a real meltdown about the millennium. But mind you, the worst one of them all was COVID. That was the one where they had the biggest meltdown of them all. They're going to try that again, I reckon.
Well, now AI is going to take over, isn't it? It's going to be like, Dave.
You're my wife now, Dave.
I saw what you were saying, Dave.
Oh, sorry. By the way, front page, the migrant return deal between the UK and France, where what will happen is every migrant returned from a small boat, we will have one of them in Paris put on the plane at British taxpayers' expense.
You can bet they'll send us the really bad ones, man.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The ones
hard to know how you can get anything worse than what we've got.
Well, there was reports they're coming over with weapons now. They're probably going to get the ones. We're going to get the ones with the weapons.
The weapons are probably already here, aren't they? That's the worry about it. With all these, you know, it's more than our army.
I love the way they say we don't know who these people are, but they can't possibly be terrorists.
And then they found some of them are.
How do you know that information?
Look, all of these people that have come over, we don't know who they are. We don't know where they've come from. They've destroyed all their ID. The only thing we know about them is A, they're definitely not rapists, and B, they're definitely not terrorists.
Do you reckon that's on the application once they come in?
We don't know their name.
Are you a terrorist?
We can't work out whether they're under the age of 18 or not, but we definitely know they're not terrorists. We're definitely sure that that's the case. Yeah. Definitely. And by the way, let me give out the phone number to anyone who wants to call us, 0344 499 1000. What else have we got?
We got the Daily Mail Star. Don't forget Mike Graham coming up after 6 if you're listening in the morning. It's a great show, so keep tuned for that. Star McCabe's into rebels on benefits. Well, we talked about that earlier. You know, he just goes with the wind, whichever way the wind blows, and he's going to lose his premiership. Who's going to take over? We don't know. And an exclusive investigation, Daily Mail, in a plot twist worthy of John le Carré, we reveal the grandfather of the brilliant new head of MI6 was a Nazi spy chief, and revealed Jeff and Lauren are already married. I think that's Jeff Bezos of
But that happens all the time, doesn't it? Where they go, we've had to marry in a registry office, and now we're doing the big
Venice holiday wedding.
Yeah, I wonder what attracted her to the multi-trillionaire Jeff Bezos.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. It wasn't his looks, was it? It wasn't his looks. Or the fact. What's up with his eye?
Well, I've never noticed. What's wrong with his eye?
He's got 3 of them.
No, he's got a weird eye.
Has he? Let's have a look.
Jeff Bezos.
You can't,
has got a
he's
weird
wearing
eye.
sunglasses in these pictures.
I can't
Right,
really see
let's
that.
look
I
at
haven't looked into his eyes.
Let's look at
into
the
eye.
let's look at the Bezos's face,
Let's have a look,
and we'll
yeah.
confirm whether
We're just
he
gonna
has a
check out-
weird
Please bear
looking
with us
eye.
while we check out
Right,
Jeff
Bezos'
eyes.
Look, he's got a weird eye. Look,
What,
Can you
one's a bit
confirm?
bigger?
one's small and one's big.
Yeah, well, maybe that's part of his success. I mean, David Bowie, he had one big eye.
Maybe he's got
one
like,
small eye, didn't he?
maybe it's like a fake eye that he can take
Maybe
out.
it's like got data that
Do you
comes
reckon he
up on
brought
the
it from
screen.
Amazon? It wouldn't surprise me, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean, with all that technology.
Some cybotic.
But yeah, he's
Well,
got a rocket ship,
on
hasn't he?
the bombshell of Bezos's eye, I think what we should do is ask you: Do you really care about whether the spy chief had German relatives?
Well, we know what went on.
By the way,
There was a
35
Nazi
million to
spy
book
ship.
out Venice for his wedding, Bezos.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest with you, they're having real problems in Venice because it's just been overrun with tourists. There's like about 5 residents.
Yeah, and it's sinking because it's all built on logs in like the 1700s, and it's a bit dodgy around there. They've got a lot of gangsters controlling things.
My
and all
understanding is
the money gets filtered out to.
My understanding is it smells of logs as well. You walk around it.
Yeah, different type
Apparently
of
it
log.
smells absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it's known for that. And you go in a restaurant and order an ice cream, and you go a little bit, and then they give you another fee, and it's like $200 or something. So be careful, when you go out to.
Do you know what? I had that once. You know those strip clubs where they just charge you 200 quid?
No, I don't know that.
Me and my mates went into, they're called clip joints. So anyway, we went into this place. They tried to charge us 300 quid, but the people that they were trying to rip off were the University of London debating squad. And after about 2 hours, they just threw us out.
What's that? Clip joints? Oh no, it sounded like
they
that.
are called clip joints. Clip
Just
joints.
clip with a
Clip
P.
In the
joints.
UK?
Yes, where they are fake nightclubs where they rip you off. Anyway, we'll be
On
back.
that bombshell.
We'll be back with the paper
Yeah.
review straight after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the press preview on Talk with Andre Walker, Asher Gould, and Curtis Hinton. Curtis, what have you got? What have we spotted in the front pages?
Well, Jeff Bezos is all over it. That's what I've spotted. He's. Is it really
Well
this
done,
big?
you've worked hard today.
Is it really this big? His wedding?
No. You see, this is the media. We don't care.
It's not that. They want to have a picture. They want to have a photo of him with that young bird, and everyone go.
Yeah, but I mean,
everyone go. Well, she looked. They're saying she's not that young. She's a lot younger than him, right?
is he the richest man? Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, isn't it?
Is he still the richest man in the world?
I thought Musk is the richest man.
Yeah,
in the world.
I think, yeah.
Well, he's not doing badly.
He lost a bit when he had to go at Trump, didn't it? It dropped out about 25%, Tesla, because they thought they were going to lose the contract.
The reality is with these people, they don't know how rich they are because it fluctuates constantly because of the value of assets.
227 billion.
He's doing all right.
He's
not doing too bad, is he?
all right.
He's doing all right.
You wouldn't say no to it.
He's third richest. He's not even the second richest. Why are we even bothering
Who's
with
this,
him?
Bezos?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos. Elon is worth 420. Who's Zuckerberg?
Right.
Zuckerberg is the second richest.
You
man.
have to understand they can't hear what the producer's saying to you.
So it's Elon Musk is 450 billion, and Zuckerberg is the
By
second
the way,
richest man, whoever that is.
Mark
and
Mark
Jeff Bezos.
Mark
third.
Zuckerberg that awful
Zuckerberg.
metaverse. Have you seen it? It is the worst thing ever. Right, he's decided to create this like AI thing where you can walk around like if you're a real geek and you've got no friends, like virtual pubs and all this. It is the lamest thing I've ever seen.
But he's just lucked out because I mean, you know, Bill Gates was a genius, Steve Jobs was a genius, Elon Musk a genius, and this Zuckerberg, he just did a project at university and it took off, and that was all. That was it. He's not really a genius, is he? Yeah, that's right. There's that film, isn't it?
There is, yeah.
Kurt, it says you stole it. if you want to go.
Apparently.
They're making a sequel of The Social Network called the.
Yeah, what happened was he wasted it all on the metaverse, and that was it. Yeah, I think the thing is, clearly there was a direction of travel which Zuckerberg has ridden. But fundamentally, I mean, I don't think he didn't come up with any of the technology, did he?
He's not the genius that they all take.
He coded it all. He built the initial Facebook.
Yeah, it was a project at Harvard, wasn't it? I mean, it was, and he lucked out.
But see, when I first became aware of Facebook, a friend of mine had won the election, and he said, "Oh, people were writing on my wall," and I was like, "What do you mean writing on your wall?" But in those days, you could only join it with a university web email address, and also the other thing about it was what it was, and I thought this was a brilliant idea, so I joined pretty quickly when you didn't need a university. You'd go, right, so here's a photo from university, tag people, so you'd go, oh, his name's Curtis Hinton, his name's Asher Gould, because other people would tag the photo, and you could sort of get your cursor over.
Do you ever go on it now? I don't bother. I don't really bother with it.
Facebook.
I'm still a big MySpace fan though.
MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace. Yeah,
is it still active?
Everyone's on MySpace.
You're joking? Does it still exist?
Yeah, got MySpace. Yeah, it's not.
Have you got a Bebo?
Yeah, a Bebo. Yeah, that's the kids one. Isn't
Bebo
it?
sold. That guy sold it for 500 million and bought it back 3 years later for $500,000.
That's good business.
That's very good business.
He said, I don't know if I can revive it, but given that I'd created it and I was on go for $500,000,
it's his baby.
He said I might as well.
Yeah. Anyway, The Guardian, kneecap on protest Palestine and free speech. They're going to be at Glastonbury. Horrendous now, Glastonbury, isn't it? It's just full of leftist woke fest. It was horrendous. I used to go back in the 90s, and it was all right back then, but it gradually got, a bit funny and woke, and now it's just... you remember that was the epitome of this? We did the Jeremy Corbyn thing, and he was on... It was sick-making. Curtis, have you ever been at Glastonbury?
I've never been, and to be honest, camping in a tent isn't something that
I never camped there. We used to just go in and just stay up for 3 days, or collapse here and there. You know what I mean? That was the way. You don't get a tent.
I had a friend who did something awful at Glastonbury. I think they've got
a lot of us have done awful.
They've got loads of security there now. I think this bloke partially caused it. I'm not condoning this, but he bought a van for 500 quid, an old banger, went over to France, filled the back of it with beer, right, then he went to Glastonbury, backed through the Harris fence, just smashed the Harris fence down, opened the back and went, cans of lager, 2 quid each. Right.
How long did he get to sell for?
He reckoned he was only there for a few hours, but he made many thousands.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, people used to go and sell beer there because it was a captured market.
Yeah,
I mean, the owners actually, everything there's Mexican, Indian, and this, and they're all the same price, like £10. And the organisers get a cut; they make more money.
Of course they do.
And of course, that's why they didn't mind. When it was meant to be 150,000, people would break in. You'd get $250,000. Of course, they made a load more money with the food, so they sort of turned a blind. A bit like the Deliveroo, an old version of the modern Deliveroo and Uber Eats driver turning a blind eye to. I mean, that could be solved. The migrants, you could just have. They've all got their phones that they do. They could have a facial recognition program.
Yep.
So they obviously could be easily solved.
Do you know Uber don't require you to have your real name, on the app because they're all called Mohammed. Genuinely, they said because everyone would just be apparently because almost everybody would just be Mohammed. They encourage them to make up a different name. Obviously, on their internal system, they know who people are, but
so they're listed different.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, so we know what's going on, and great for the Sun that exposed this.
By the way,
we knew about it, but the Sun have brought it into the.
By the way, somebody's just texted in saying, "I thought you were about to tell the story about a friend of ours called Jonathan and what he did in secrets in Hammersmith." I'm not. going to tell that story under
secrets
any
of Hammersmith?
No, let's not worry about what secrets in Hammersmith is or what he did in his trousers. We're not going to be discussing that at all. It's fair to say that he got a little excited.
This is a morning show.
Anyway, no, he just enjoyed the show. That was all. Enjoyed it very much.
Also in The Guardian, massive concessions on welfare bill win over key Labour rebels. So his flip-flopping has succeeded again, but only temporarily.
What about this, though?
On the way out.
Increase in young people with mental health problems. I do not blame the young people. I blame coronavirus lockdown. I blame Whitty. I blame Valance. I blame Van Tam. And that guy, Ferguson, I think they literally, because they had so few social skills themselves, prioritised stopping the virus spread at the expense of our economy, public services, cancer waiting times, and the mental health of young people. I genuinely think that group of people, well, I wouldn't say what I'd do to them, but I'll tell you what, you can't do this, but I would dearly love to lock them up.
Yeah, but also with young people, and maybe you can't blame them for this, they're seeing people getting everything for free. They're knowing they're not really ever going to be able to have a stake in life, like buying a house and having a family. They can't afford it. They think, well, how can I get on? And it's easy to get down the doctors and get, you've got this and that and you can have a life. I mean, I just saw they're going to give council housing for life now. Doesn't matter if you make 100 grand. They were doing 5-year term leases. So now if you have a council house, you can even hand it to your family. You've got it for life. Doesn't matter if you're earning 100, 200 grand a year. You can keep your London council house or wherever it is for life and hand it over. I mean, how is that fair? It's ridiculous. And so people your age or younger are going, well, what's the point? I'll just try and get on the system.
I oppose social housing, Curtis, for the following reason. This is my only my own experience. What used to happen in Windsor was this: we would have a social housing contingent of a new development, not very often because there weren't many of them. And what would happen is the people that were most in need, and who were the people most in need? Families who had no other relatives in the area, i.e. recent migrants. So what would happen is the poorest people in our community would be forced to buy buy 2 houses, one for themselves and one from an immigrant family, and all that did was just pushed up the cost of housing whilst delivering no benefit whatsoever.
Well, 70% of central London's, council housing, which is, people can't dream about living in central London, it goes to foreign nationals.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and some of them don't even have a job, and they've just got it for life.
But what happens is the taxpayers have to get up particularly early to take the train through all the central London locations filled up with migrants who don't earn a bean. Yeah. But I oppose social housing because at least there would be a fairness to those people who can pay for it getting a house. Whereas actually what happens is you have to buy 2 houses, one for yourself and one for a recent migrant. And I believe that encourages uncontrolled immigration. So I oppose social housing.
Yeah.
And they're talking about taking about all the hotels by 2029. They're building all these new houses, and that's where they're just flooding.
Yeah, they're just moving them out of hotels and into houses.
They're giving them permanent
in everyone's area.
But it's exactly the same as that dishonesty by Keir Starmer. We're going to stop the small boats by granting more asylum applications in Paris. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of migrants in small hotels by buying the hotels and no longer call them hotels. What we're trying to say here, it's got nothing to do with small boats and hotels. It's got something to do with uncontrolled immigration. We want to stop uncontrolled immigration.
That's the root. That's the core. That's the issue. The core issue at most of this country's problems.
Which is not just uncontrolled immigration. The vast majority, the million a year, the Boris wave was legal migration. So that's the, they take our eye off the ball with this. I mean, that's obviously no good, the illegal, but also the legal migration needs to come to an end.
I think that the plan by the elites, whether it be deliberate or whether it be just through their own cowardice, is basically allow uncontrolled immigration for enough of a period of time so it can't be reversed and people give up caring.
Do you reckon that's what it is?
Yeah.
They'll get to a point where... Here's a question for you. On the immigration side of things, there could have been World War III that could have broke out in the past couple of weeks with the whole Iran situation with the US and Israel.
Yeah.
2 million foreign men have come in this country. How many British men do you think are actually going to go and serve abroad whilst they're women children at home?
I think we would have to. The problem is, if there was a war now that started between Iran and Israel and we were on Israel's side, I think the British Army would be overwhelmed by what we'd have to do with the civil war in the United Kingdom. Because look, let's be clear, Birmingham, Burnley Accrington, some of the other places, Doncaster, no, probably Keighley and places like that, I think would UDI, which is make a unilateral declaration of independence and fight on the side of Iran. Wouldn't they? There's no way. There's no way that Keighley would be on London's side, would it? Now, when you're talking about a British army of 60, 70, 80,000, we would be overwhelmed by having to take control of our own.
Well, they're not all fighters as well, remember. It's only
I think we would have to. I mean, if you remember that in 1916 at the GPO uprising, we had to recall the Nottinghamshire Regiment to quell an uprising in Dublin. I think the British Army would be pinned down by a battle in the United Kingdom. There is no way. There is no way that Blackburn is going to be on Britain's side in a war.
No.
There's no prospect.
It's not
going to happen.
Even I live in Bedfordshire. Luton is
Luton.
Never.
Oh no, definitely not.
Luton would not be on Britain's side.
Of course, it's not going to.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now look, you can lament that, but fundamentally, it's like David Starkey says: these tribal areas will vote amongst themselves. They'll elect representatives who are on the other side. And they will pretend. I don't know how violent they'll get, but you would have to have a fair. And the problem is, of course, if you're looking at the police, you know, could you trust Bedfordshire police if there was a major problem with treason in Luton? The Bedfordshire police would have to be stood down.
They can't deal with shoplifters. They're not going to be able to deal with that.
I mean, can you imagine this ludicrous situation? And it is a little. We're getting increasingly far-fetched. But Luton supports Iran, and the Bedfordshire police change sides
for their own safety.
To
be fair, do you know what?
Sounds like a great film.
I wouldn't blame them for their own safety. I really wouldn't blame them. And the issue is, this is corely built from the government, and it's not just this Labour government. It's the previous 14 years from the Conservatives, the previous 13 years from the Labour prior to that. It's just been. Ever since '97, just before...
Since Blair, they've all just copied Blairism, and it's turned this country into...
The other thing is about people not being on our side. Right, let's just be clear. All of those vehicles that the British government insisted that were retired by ULEZ, that the British government insisted should go to Ukraine, where are they? They're all sitting in a warehouse in East London. Sadiq Khan will not send military support to Britain's allies. He won't do it. He will not do it.
Why does he have such a right, though? How does a mayor of London...
Because what he keeps doing is, we're struggling to get the export licence because he owns the vehicles legally because it's TfL. Because they've exchanged them.
So the sooner he's out, the better, for more than one reason.
But let's be clear. Now, whatever you think about Ukraine, we have instructed the Mayor of London to send... So rather than these vehicles rotting away... in a warehouse or wherever they are, in a lockup, they should be sent to Ukraine. Sadiq Khan will not send them. They will never go to Ukraine, nor will any other military aid from TfL, whether demanded or not. Worrying. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is a press preview with Andre Walker, Curtis Hinton, and Asher Gould. I thought I'd just change the running order around there just to mix things up a little bit. The number to call is 0344. You say that 0344 499 1000. I'm starting to sound like a cross between Holly Willoughby and Baron Greenback, aren't I?
Quite a sexy combination.
Indeed. 03444991000.
Do you need a Horlicks or Ovaltine? Do you know what we found out about Horlicks and Ovaltine? They're actually gruel.
Gruel, types of gruel.
So if you want to call in about
Horlicks and Ovaltine are gruel.
1000. In the Daily Telegraph, wine prices are up 9p a bottle. Well, that's all right. It's not 9p. I can chuck up 9p for a bottle of Thunderbird. Megan's bringing out wine. It's about $28, and we've got a Vox Pops on that. We've sent our intrepid reporter Andre Walker in his new portion, which he's bringing his Vox Pops. It's called Walkie Talkies, and here's the first in the latest episode about Megan's wine. Run VT.
Rosé wine. We're going to be asking people what they think of it. Chateau de Sarsens, I think it's a vintage. This is from Meghan Markle. It's a new drink for this summer. She's saying that it's going to be hugely popular. Would you be willing to swap your pint for some rosé wine made by Meghan Markle?
No.
This is Meghan Markle's new range of drinks and food. Do you want to try of it?
Alcohol.
It's not alcohol. It is alcohol, yeah. Could you drink it and pretend it's Meghan Markle's drink and say you loved it? Yeah, go on. Go on. Yeah, go on. Just say, this is Meghan Markle's rosé. It is amazing.
This Meghan Markle rosé is amazing.
Has anyone ever described you as easily led?
Yes.
Okay. Would you be willing to buy some rosé wine made by Meghan Markle? Would you like to try Meghan Markle's wine? Oh, he was angry. No, I could see the anger in his eyes.
So you thought you were going to attack him with the wine, or what happened there? Did you?
No, I was following him for a little while, and then he tried to grab me by the neck, but he missed. Yeah, I told him he looked like Howard Cox.
Oh, well, no wonder he attacked you.
Well, he wasn't.
Any rational man would attack you for that.
Not that bad.
No, he's a good man, a good-looking man, Howard Cox.
That was quite aggressive.
Yeah, he was a bit angry.
You were basically assaulted there by a member of the public.
No, his hands missed. Okay, what else have we got?
Starmer caves into rebels on benefits, we know about that. One in, one out, deal with France, we know all about that. Ridiculous deal.
By the way, Britain's sweltering again with 30-degree... sorry, I was looking at the Express.
Oh, yeah, it's sweltering. Did you notice that? It was sweltering. It's going to be even more sweltering, man.
It's fine. It was just a bit sunny.
What, today? Was it 30?
Well, it wasn't today.
No, it's tomorrow. It's going to swelter tomorrow and a bit more sweltering.
Yeah.
Lashings of sweltering going on, so make sure you got your water, serviettes and a fan.
Do you remember a couple of years ago when it was 42 or 44 degrees? Probably hotter here in London.
People were dying. I mean, it is very serious, isn't it?
I don't remember it being this panicky though. Like, why are we panicking?
Oh, because it's their sort of way to get us all. But they now put the weather map. If it's 25 degrees, they put it in red, don't they? Try and fry. Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that great Frankie Boyle joke? Do you remember when that terrorist?
No, I don't remember one of those.
That great terrorist kind of drove into Glasgow Airport with a car that was flaming because he said he wanted people to be horrifically burnt and he didn't succeed. And he said, what amazes me is the naivety of Al-Qaeda because if you want to get people horrifically burnt, do not stop Scottish people going to Benidorm because Scottish people in Benidorm will be horrifically
come back
burnt.
Already,
They'll come back with all sorts of horrendous. I've got to be honest with you. There's a great thing that you see sometimes on the internet. I've been sent it multiple times, which is the picture of in the 1980s how they did the weather report and how they do it now. Like, it's literally like crimson, isn't it? If it's like 28 degrees.
Yeah, bring back Ian McCaskill. Oh, no, we can't. But Michael Fish and John Ketley. Actually, once I was driving to the old place at work, at the Waterloo Bridge, the big roundabout, and Ian McCaskill dotted out in front of the road, and me and the bloke in the car next to me looked at each other like, look, Ian McCaskill. He was a bit doddery. I think he'd had a few. He liked to drink. Anyway, next, animal charity attacks Prince over his puppies, and he got these, is it Cocker Spaniels? And apparently there's something bad about Cocker Spaniels, how they breed. I can't read it.
I've got to be honest with you. There's got to be. I'm not a dog lover. I'm not that interested. I don't know if you are, Curtis, but I do worry about the horrific inbreeding that goes on with dogs. And you look at a just an example, a British Bulldog. you look from like 1900 what it looks like and what it looks like now, and they can't breathe.
But also, I saw Crufts, the winner, about 10 years ago, and it was an Alsatian, but its back legs were sort of too short, and it looked, you know, it looked wrong, and it looked like it was crippled, and this was the thing that won Crufts. So they do, you know, they go, oh, it's got to have this and to be a great example of this.
And it's the crossbreeding, like the crossbreeding to get more money because it becomes a unique.
And they can't breathe,
and
and you know, it's terrible what goes. They become cripples. Bank rejects
because sorry, I should just say. These separate breeds of dogs have been invented, right? It's not like saying there's a bear and a polar bear, which is something that's come about naturally. They've literally been bred deliberately like this.
But you know, polar bears and grizzly bears do meet at the point in North America, and you get growlers. They're called growlers. No, that's actually true. That is actually
every day's a school day. Huh?
No, that's not.
Yeah, well, no, he said the gallery have said that's not what a growler is. A growler is actually the recyclable bottle that you put beer in.
Well, what's your? Well, I'll tell you what. A nice segue from this growler.
So what the gallery's saying is, if you have a particularly nice growler, please do send us a photo. 0344.
Well, talking of growler, Bank rejects Reeves's claims on economy. Because, of course, she used... she remember she said, oh, show me growler to Boris Johnson to put him off in Parliament. I mean, that's we want that as Prime Minister. And I'll do one, you know, all that sort of thing. And Palestine Action plans to another RAF.
What's amazing about Palestine Action? They've been prescribed as a terrorist group.
Have they yet though?
In the weeks before the order is signed, they've decided to have a going away rally, and you think that's the sort of thing you do if, like, you know, you've won a sporting match or something. You don't sort of...
Well, it's like toddlers throwing their toys out.
But as Anjam Chowdhury proved, in the age of the internet, it's incredibly difficult to do, because all he did was he changed the name of Al Muhajiroon to Islam for UK. It was all just the same people.
Was it?
Yeah.
And it didn't get prescribed. It did get prescribed.
Islam for UK got prescribed and then just changed the name to something else. He only got prosecuted when he was finally found saying, it's really easy to just keep changing the names of these groups. And then somebody went, that in of itself is proof it's the same organisation.
Yeah.
It's an easy ruse, that is. Anyway, Daily Express, just to confirm, Britain will swelter again in 30 degrees C plus weekend heat. We haven't had a summer like this for a while, have we? It's been,
We haven't. It's been, but then it's not been sunny. Well, it's not in Bedfordshire anyway. It's been hot.
Oh, that's where we are. Is it not sunny in Bedfordshire?
It's not. It's just
been lovely out down here.
It's been weird, like it was overcast and hot.
Yeah.
It was muggy. It was
muggy.
It was
That's
humid.
the worst thing, isn't it? Yeah, the humidity, man.
That's what we can't deal with in this country.
Yeah, we can't deal with it.
Well, it's always humid in Britain. I mean, like when I
it's very moist, isn't it? Everywhere you go is moist.
When I was a little kid, well, not a little kid, when I was a teenager, I went over to Russia, and I was amazed that, like, you could walk around in -20 and it was all right, because of course the air's very dry, and air's not a great conductor of heat. Therefore, as long as you had a big coat on, the hat, it didn't feel that bad.
Well, it's like I've been in 45 degrees and out of the Dead Sea, and it's perfectly all right because it's dry. It's not got the humidity. I mean, my girlfriend couldn't take it. She was collapsing, but she had blonde hair and that, and she couldn't really. She got the heat stroke, but I was fine. Anyway, the Daily Express, how dare you suggest she is on her deathbed? Dame Esther Ranson's family shared photos of her at her 85th birthday party
she said, please, can I have euthanasia because I'm spent.
I mean, when she did that, they actually found a new sort of thing that could keep her going, which was a great thing. But, you know, this is the whole thing with this.
I mean, nothing says I'm in perfectly good health more than a big hat, some glasses, and sitting down next to somebody holding your present for you. Right?
Yeah, but she's got a great smile. You know, she seems all right.
Nothing says. I mean, look. The reality is, I worry very much about Esther Ranson. On a serious note, I'll tell you why I worry about her. I worry about it as an issue. You know, she was very, very keen on this idea of euthanasia, and then, of course, she perked up. Yeah. And I just worry. I worry so much. I know James Whale says that there should be an option to have euthanasia, but at the same time, James Whale is incredibly, incredibly ill. But this is the bit people forget. He's been incredibly ill before, maybe not quite as bad as this, but not far off. And a new treatment's come on, and he's pulled back from the brink. Got to be very, very careful.
And with this new law, the thing that's going through Parliament, it's just got approved this last week. Yeah.
I mean, you can have. I mean, I've given an example. It happens all the time now, where somebody can be given 3 months to live on the Thursday, and by the following Wednesday, a new treatment's been approved that'll give them 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even if you go to the next NHS area, they can say, "Oh, we can do something about this."
Yeah.
Whereas I've heard that before. That happens.
Postcode lottery.
Postcode lottery. Also, US insists strikes on Iran were a success. Of course, the legacy media saying, "Oh, you didn't even manage to do it." Well, look, if we didn't, we've got to do it again. I did that one, yeah, but if we've got to do it again, so they can't be allowed to have.
They've been gloating on social media and on their state television saying that it hasn't done what the US has claimed to it to be done.
Yeah, but that's we got to take it with a pinch of salt. You remember Comical Ali? Well, you won't remember. There was a Comical Ali saying, "You will die in your tanks," as they were all being killed. It's part of their bluster, because in that part of the world, if you're not the strongest, you get done over.
Yeah.
So you have to pretend they're pretending they've won. They're having parades. We kick the Americans.
What does it
out
mean for Trump when the New York Post now New York Times are putting it on their front page saying that he hasn't succeeded?
Fake news. It's fake news.
Well, I think in all honesty, I don't care what they say in Tehran as long as they ain't got a nuke.
I think people don't care now about what those CNN,
In fact,
they don't care what they say. People are seeing through it now.
In fact, actually, if the Iranians were to do the following, we have got a nuke, that's why we don't need to build another one, and they're lying, I'd say, good luck to you, and just go on the telly going, oh, hey, ho, we failed, right, just leave them to it. As long as they haven't got a nuke, I don't care what they say.
And satellites these days show all of that sort of stuff. That's how they knew that they were a few weeks away from actually having
what
one.
they did was they did move enriched uranium away from their facility.
Substantial amounts.
Yes, well, probably all.
I think it will have to happen again, within probably not that long. They'll have to do. I don't think Israel is actually stopped. It's only a ceasefire, remember. This is the end of the
I will tell you there's an even more serious nuclear problem.
And they'll be watching, of course.
That the sarcophagus of the or the shielding of the what's it called? Chernobyl nuclear power station has been punctured by a Russian drone. This £1.5 billion shielding that was completed, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, will now have to be completely redone. As it stands, Chernobyl is back open to the elements.
Well, they were going to have to do it again every few years because it lasts for centuries, doesn't it? This bubbling
but they weren't going to have to
cauldron of radioactivity.
It was what they were going to do next. They were going to encase what was underneath the shielding. Now they'll have to redo the shielding completely. And the problem
is... That's a big job. Imagine the guy goes, oh, that's going to be expensive, that one, the workman.
So they've what they actually do is they ensure that the pressure inside the chamber is slightly lower than outside, so it sucks in rather than pushes out radiation. Right. So basically, Chernobyl is open to the elements again. Is the long shot.
I assume they're not taking visitors at the moment then.
No.
Well, there are people who go.
Yeah. Well, of course, you Chernobyl fallout. That's that's the problem.
If it was a bit safer, I think I'd like to visit it.
I wouldn't.
Why not?
I've seen people who've gone there because it's a highly radioactive site.
That's the
and you do not know what's going to... Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a friend of mine who said, oh, I found some stuff in the school in Pripyat, stuck it in my bag and came home with it. I'll tell you what, I would not have anything from Pripyat in my house.
Especially if it's glowing green and really hot and stuff. Yeah, don't say. Anyway, we've got a little breaky, haven't we, at this point? Don't forget Mike Graham coming up. You're listening in the morning after 6. We'll be back in less than a couple of minutes. Stay there.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. This is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Curtis Hinton. And what have we got next?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've pretty much run out. Have you got anything, Curtis, that you wanted to talk about that Chuck gave you to pretend? We've got this. We've got, of course, Deliveroo. We're talking about the Deliveroo, of course, this big expose by the Sun, our partners in the Sun, showing how basically within 10 minutes of getting here, they've got a job with Deliveroo, Uber Eats, and the other ones. Yeah. And then their answer is the hotels to stop people seeing them put shields up. I mean, they know what's going on. They're making a grand a week. This is tax-free, of course, and then they're getting taxpayers' money to the tune of about 40 grand, 50 grand a year with all the lawyers' fees and the hotels. And I mean, what is going on? How can, this isn't, we can't continue with this. And it's great that the Sun exposed this, and now it's sort of, but we knew it was going on anyway. But do you think this will now, something will be done? These companies can do a lot about this, but obviously they're turning a blind eye. I mean,
their argument's going to be who's going to do them jobs instead. That's what their argument's going to be. But
well, legal employees.
I know, without a doubt. What I'd like to know though is with a company, if a product fails and it kills someone, the CEO of the company could face legal prosecution. Now, what I want to know is if one of these people who come over, who they have no idea who they are, does something which causes someone potentially to die, or God forbid, rape or something like that, or God forbid, obviously die as well. Is the CEO of Just Eat going to be held accountable? No, of course they're not.
Nothing's going to happen, no. It'll get hushed up. It may have already happened.
Exactly.
We don't
know. That's the issue.
Well, what worries me is this. We are all incredibly stupid here because we are costing ourselves a fortune. Let's just be clear on something. I'm just giving this as an example. This is a highlighter pen. If you think that you can get a pack of these for £1 delivered for free, right, and that's all it costs you, you're wrong. What happens is the people that do these deliveries have brought over migrants to the country who need housing, who need in-work benefits, who have child benefits, who have the rest of it. What happens is you get this delivered for £1 and there is a cost of several pounds to the taxpayer of having it. It's exactly the same as I used to complain about these coffee shops. And you go, oh, isn't it brilliant? My Moche Grande coffee or whatever it is, right, costs £4. And you can sit there and nurse it in Starbucks for 2 hours. Yes, because the person serving it to you gets in-work benefits, gets child benefits for their kids, gets housing benefit. It costs you £4 for your coffee. It costs me £4 as well.
Yeah.
And then not only that, these big companies, a lot of the American companies, they avoid tax, not evade it. It's all legal. They have to do it by, with their own contract, their own operations person has to do it, but they can just go through the tax code and go, right, we will avoid this tax, and so they don't
Maybe
pay.
That's what we need to do then. Maybe we need to tax them more.
Or tax them on their gross turnover rather than profits, where they can jiggery and put it about, and because they're. I mean, I know Thea Paphitis, Robert Dias, he owns Ryman's. Lots. They can't compete with like Amazon because they've got to pay,
what happens?
Council the rates, whereas a big warehouse down the M6, you haven't got to pay as much.
But now what happens with Amazon is this: say they take on 20 workers, 10 of them are fast enough, 10 of them are too slow. What happened? And you start to think about this, and you start to think, hang on a second, we're being done here. So they go, right, those fast 10 who can do it quick enough for Amazon, we will keep. What happens to the other 10? Stick them on the social. So there is a total of 20 people in the workforce, and basically you just say, we'll pick the ones that are fast and the social will pay for the ones that are slow.
And also there's in-work benefits for the ones that are fast, so we're subsidising these big blue-chip companies and they're not really paying the right wages.
A 60-year-old will not be fast enough. Well, you can keep him on the taxpayer. They will not accept that some people are faster than others.
And Amazon will put, they bring everyone who works on their lines on agency. They don't bring them in on agency for 3 months, and then they either give them zero hours the lot. So again, they say no to them, and then the same agency sends the same person on a new contract the following Monday.
Yeah.
I felt terrible the other day. I was in B&Q and I dropped a bit of a pot of paint on the floor. And you know, in B&Q they have the odd sort of 70-year-old man, and he was there mopping on the floor. I felt terrible. Obviously, I couldn't do it because of insurance reasons.
Oh, yeah,
that's absolutely
they won't let you, will
I
they?
had to just stand there, look, giving him moral support and stuff. And you know, but that is that generation. They go out and they do work, and they, you know, this generation. Well, your generation, I mean, but you're not like that. How old are you? 25, 26?
28. I'll take that though. 25.
So I mean, what do your mates? Are they all hard workers, or are some of them?
They're all working. One of my best mates, he works in Costa. He's worked there for about 8 years now. He's worked his way up to like junior manager.
Well, this is the way you can actually achieve
But
quite a bit.
McDonald's is like the army, isn't it? Being a general, because like there's a 1-star
You
general.
get the stars.
They do, yeah. They
You
get
can be a
loads.
5-star.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you something that I think's impressive. I mean, look, first of all, get a job, whatever it is. People who get a job at McDonald's and turn up every day,
Yeah.
you know, most people in McDonald's, that's the first job they've had.
Yeah.
But all of them go on to other employment, and the kind of long-term employment rate for people who've had the guts to flip. Because look,
I admire young people who've got a job. I think, well, that's good. You know what I mean?
if you flip burgers at McDonald's, people will take the mick out of you, but they won't be laughing when you've got a job age 50 and they haven't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it's.
Well, look, summer holidays are coming up. All those kids now, 16 years old, coming out. What are they going to do? Sit down and do nothing for the summer, or are they going to get part-time jobs?
They just like eat avocados, and you know what I mean. This is what your
Laze
generation's done.
Yeah, what they do is they've become emos
on
now,
their
haven't they?
Tamagotchis.
Tamagotchis.
You know,
They're
playing on their
all
Tamagotchis.
emos. They're all, oh, I'm a victim.
Yeah.
What are you victim of? Boredom, laziness.
You know, HR, companies want to employ young people. I don't know why, because HR just must be constantly.
Do you know what I call HR?
Working.
Do you know what I call HR? Human remains. Because like nobody with any talent works in an HR department.
No, you've got the right, haven't you? From day one, are they bringing in those laws? That when
What is it? You had rights after 2 years initially, didn't you? Or
yeah,
3 years,
but which is ridiculous. From day one, you get rights. I mean, you know, it might not. And who's going to want to employ
Especially in this
people
day and age.
with that risk?
Yeah.
So no wonder we've got companies not setting up in this country, millionaires leaving in their droves. I mean, it's a terrible state.
I worry about what we're doing, and I think we've got to start focusing on good quality jobs, and if that means bringing back manufacturing, and I'll tell you how you bring back manufacturing, very simple: tax breaks and low energy costs.
Yeah.
And I think we should be making stuff in the UK.
You can never do it with energy costs.
I don't support. I'll tell you, I don't support private nationalisation, but I will nationalise something if it's already been nationalised by the Chinese. We didn't privatise British Steel for it to be owned by the Chinese.
By the way, stay tuned. Mike Graham is coming up at 6, so stay tuned if you're listening in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Graham is up right now if you're listening on Friday morning.
Yeah. Morning.
Okay, if you're still on Thursday night, this gives us our opportunity to say goodbye to Curtis, or are you going to stay on?
No, I believe I'm off now.
You're off, are you? We've got rid of you.
So it's just your calls now after this. Just going to be you and us.
Absolutely, and I want you to talk more because my voice is going.
Yeah, man. So we've got Steve and Alan and Pat and Ray and Deborah and Yasmin, Michael in Spain, Sean.
We've only got one slot available.
Only one slot, no matron, so give us a ring on that call and we will get you on.
Absolutely. And can we follow you, Curtis, on social media?
At Curtis L. Hinton.
Okay. At Virtual Ash.
At Andre J.P. Walker. What's the L for? Leonard?
Lee.
Curtis Lee Hinton.
Yeah.
It's quite a modern name, that, isn't it?
Curtis Lee Hinton.
Okay, 03444991000 is the number to call. We've got one slot available. Please do leave us a voice message. All you do is you just record on WhatsApp by saving that number, then record on WhatsApp, send it to us. We can play it out any time, but we can't interrupt it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. I guess let's just get straight to the calls. Steve is in Walsall. Steve, you're on Talk.
Good evening, gentlemen.
All right, man. Morning. What's going on, Steve?
Well, good morning, sorry. About this welfare reforms,
Yes.
in my opinion, it does need reforming in a serious manner, because there's a lot of people being paid a hell of a lot of money and that don't need it.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second, Steve. Can I just say something to you? We've done some research recently, or rather, one of our sister companies has, and we think that the attitude towards welfare has changed. Which is this: in the old days, people would say, cradle to grave. If you really need the money, it's there available for you, but you should only claim it if you need it.
And if you've paid in as well.
Nowadays, the attitude is, hang on a second. We're being nailed to the desk to pay for all this. If I don't claim it, it will just be given to a migrant. Ergo, I'm going to claim up to the hilt, and I don't care what you think of it.
And it's snowballing.
And actually, there's an argument now, we think, where reasonable, decent people who perhaps wouldn't have claimed benefits 20 years ago now will claim absolutely everything, because they believe that it's unfair that they should be financially crippled in order to pay for migrants.
Well, I know a lot of people, they're riding around in £45,000 SUVs. Why do that?
I know, it's ridiculous, this car thing.
Ridiculous. Yeah. It's absolutely stupid.
I mean, why do they get the BMWs and Audis?
But hang on a second. Let's put it the other way. Right. If I can claim a £45,000 car, think about it. Yeah. My dad worked. My mum. No, but hang on. My dad worked. My mum worked. My grandparents worked. My brothers work. My brother's partners work. You know, those that are old enough, my niece and nephews work. You come in as a convicted criminal from Albania, you get a 4-star hotel, you get free bus travel, free train travel in London. I don't know if they've implemented it yet, but they will do soon. You know,
an iPhone, tennis lessons, driving lessons, whatever you want, you get it.
A free bike. And I think to myself, hang on a second, we've paid into this system. Why should I pay in and the only people who can claim are criminals from abroad? Why shouldn't I have my slice?
That's why we've got to change the system, and they won't.
If this is a free-for-all, why can't I get involved? Why should I be the moral one?
Yes, but the thing is, what really boils me up, it really boils me up. I left school, I've told you this before, I left school when I was 14, I started work when I was 14, I finished when I was 67. And my state pension is an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, correct.
Because you've got to pay for people who've just arrived here, who've got to live in hotels and.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking, by the way. Oh, if you earn $100,000 a year, you shouldn't have a winter fuel payment. Well, hang on a second. If you've contributed zero to this country and have jumped the border, you get to stick the heating on whatever level you want all year round. So £300.
Well, it's like people not paying for the tube or another transport when other people who would be law-abiding see that to go, why should I be the mug that pays for it? The same goes for shoplifting. They're not going to arrest you for £200. Why should I pay for me? You know, fishermen's friends.
I mean, that's another thing. I mean, they put them in all these hotels. A chap I know, I was talking to him. He walked through Wolverhampton the other day. There was one of the.
Well, that's just dangerous in itself.
He only looked at the door, and 2 blokes stood there and said, "You're not coming in here." They've turned them into fortresses.
Well, they need to. I mean, look what's happening at Greg's now. When you want a sausage roll, they open the safe to get it out for you.
But the issue is,
I've got no other choice.
I'm not encouraging anybody to break the law, but I walk into a supermarket, right? I guarantee you. So we've got quite good jobs, but I promise you, nobody is rich now. This cost of living crisis, you know, it's utterly ludicrous. I've got my new flat coming on the 5th of August, right?
Yeah.
I wanted. So whilst I'm in London, I have to get a hotel. Tonight, it's £250 a night for a travel lodge in London, right, because of all the migrants that have come in and because of inflation and whatever. So nobody is rich. So I walk into a shop and I think, right, if I was to pick up my dinner, stick it in a bag and walk out, they'd let me. The only reason that I'm paying 30, 40, 50 quid, it's because I'm the mug that's paying. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that we should shoplift because clearly not only is it illegal and it's bad, but it would make the problem I'm complaining about worse. But you feel like an idiot.
Well, that is what's happening now, because there are people who would be law-abiding doing it now.
Well, of course. You know, why should your children go without? And of course, the tax is going up because of all this. The cost of produce is going up because of all this. Quantitative easing going up because of all of this. You know, I feel sorry for people.
I mean, not only that, I mean, we've got all these boat people. There's about 1,000 people a week coming from Africa now.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you seeing in Walsall? Is it falling apart in Walsall? Is it getting worse and worse?
Walsall's fall apart. I've told you this before.
Yeah. What's going on down the Sadler? What's going on down the Sadler Centre?
I think the council took the Sadler Centre over and put the rent all up, and all the shops are empty.
What, is there not even Argos there anymore?
Yes, there's an Argos on the other
Is
side.
the baker's oven still there, the bakery? Just imagine the energy costs on those pasties.
My favourite story was a local authority who, because of the local government pension scheme being so generous, the only way the local authority could ensure that they paid for all the pensions was they owned a shopping centre which they gave to the pension fund. So they gave it so it's previously owned by the public, it's now owned by the staff. And the staff pension said, we'll try and manage this, but if there is a shortfall because we've mismanaged the fund, you'll have to give us even more than the shopping centre.
Yeah, a lot of your council tax, quite a large percentage just goes on pensions from previous workers.
Does. All right, Steve, thanks so much. Alan is in Aberdeen. Alan, you're on talk.
All right, guys, how are you?
We're all right now. What's going on in Aberdeen? I mean, we've got no oil now, have we, with the North Sea? So what's going on there?
There's plenty of oil, we're just not exploiting it.
We're not taking it out.
Where do I start on Scotland? You know, I mean, we've got the SNP. Jesus God, it's like having Corbyn. You know what I mean? We've got Hamas, useless. You know what I mean? What can I say?
What is it? Is it looking? I mean, a reform going to do any good in Scotland?
To be honest, mate, right, reform is, we need reform in Britain.
Yeah.
However, what they're doing in Scotland is they're actually splitting the unionist vote. We actually, the last election, we got more bloody SNP because reform split the vote. So the SNP actually love reform up here. Because
it's like Keir Starmer here. The only reason he got on, he always goes on about how you voted for change. No, we didn't. We voted and split the vote and didn't want Sunak and that lot in anymore, and he won like that way.
What upsets me, Alan, what upsets me is that I think of Scotland as an amazing country. Right, now, I accept that because, 87% of people from the United Kingdom are English, or whatever it is. It's some crazy figure like that. Okay, I accept that Scotland feels like the junior partner, but most English people don't feel like that. Scotland, proud, you know, independently minded, it does its own thing, retains its culture. I feel like the SNP are just self-pityists, where it's, you know, it doesn't matter if Scotland fails as long as England fails as well.
Ever since that Braveheart film.
And you just think, when did Scotland become this moany, whiny...
Since that Mel Gibson film.
The problem that if you look at the vote here in Scotland, right, bear in mind the pro-union vote is split three ways, mate.
Yeah.
It's Tory, it's Labour, it's Liberals, now Reform. So the pro-union vote is always higher than the Nats vote, but the
but hang on a second. But
the Nats and the Greens.
But Alan, my point is this: you never hear from the SNP. Oh, wouldn't it be great if Scotland was independent? We're really positive. It's always like, the English have stolen our oil and all this sort of thing. It's sad. It just feels victim status.
Listen, your SNP are like your SNP. I'm not being funny, but they're a bit like your average jihadist. You know what I mean? They live off of hate and division. You know, they just.
I'll tell you what. I think we need to do.
The loudest.
Do you know what I think we need to do? And to solve this problem, because everyone who wants independence says, well, look at what happens with the Irish Republic. I am now an Irish Republican. I'm going to explain why. I think it's time to give Ireland their independence. I think we should end the travel area. I think we should end the open border. I think we should end the bank bailouts. I think we should end the military defence. I think we should end the underwriting of their financial services industry. I think we should start saying to Ireland, hey, listen, Varadkar's behaviour towards us during the EU Brexit negotiations was abominable, right? For 500 years, the English have said, if you give Ireland independence, the first thing they'll do is ally with Spain and France against England, which is precisely what they did, right? So what you do is you go, no. What we'll do now is we're going to give you the independence you've sought after so much, and let's just see how they get on their own.
Well, if we had independence, the fact of the matter is, we'd be absolutely screwed. Within a year, we'd be begging Westminster to take us back, and the Nats know that. They don't really want independence because they know we'd be absolutely screwed.
But the problem is, so would England as well. I mean, I'll tell you the stupidity of the Scottish nationalists, right? So they say the only reason that England wants Scotland is to steal its oil, right? I guarantee you that English people believe, rightly or wrongly, believe they are subsidising Scotland, and they're happy about that, right? Because they believe that the United Kingdom is a great thing, right?
Well, under the Barnett formula, they do get more.
Even if England was being subsidised by Scotland, the fact the English believe it's the other way round and still don't care means that the subsidy is not relevant. These people in Scotland saying the English are a colonial power exploiting Scotland, that's not the motive. It simply isn't the motivation at all.
I mean, the reason there was the union is because Scotland financially was suffering, wasn't it?
No, it went bust.
Well, exactly. I mean, and that's what would happen again.
Scotland actually went bankrupt, so that's where the union was formed.
Exactly. Yeah. So many of the viewers and listeners won't. Many of the viewers and listeners won't know that Scotland invested in a port in Mexico, which didn't really exist.
And by the way, our royal family isn't English at all. It's German and Scottish. So, you know, you're actually, in a way, more British than the English.
But when the crowns were put together under King James, the United Kingdom did not follow immediately. Scotland went... Basically, what happened was Scotland went bust. The Scottish government came cap in hand to the English taxpayer. And what really happened was the English Parliament went, we're really sick of you running up these big bills and handing them to us. We will only bail you out if we become a United Kingdom. That's actually what happened, in truth.
Well, it was a bit... Their deal at that time was about as successful as the SNP are in building ferries at the moment, to be honest.
And no one got a Winnebago outside their mother's house.
It just upsets me. I mean, I don't remember when I was a kid watching Scotland cheer on, oh, as long as England loses, we don't care, right? I mean, I personally...
Oh, they always were like that.
Well, yeah, not en masse.
No, but there was always that England-Scotland. Well, that comes from the football, wasn't it? That was the oldest international match.
It was friendly, right?
Friendly banter, yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm British. I'm Scottish. I'm British. I served in the British Army. I'm British.
Yeah.
And but the SNP, they've brought nothing but hate and division. But what do you expect from the left? They do that no matter where they are.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
We know.
Also, the other thing is, if you think the SNP are not racist against Scottish people, just listen to our friend Humza Yousaf, right?
Wait!
Oh, don't get me started on Hamas useless. I despise that man with an absolute passion. He's a Hamas ISIS supporter. He's Muslim Brotherhood. He should be deported.
Well, I've got to be honest with you.
He was born here, though.
I don't think there's any evidence he's been a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. However, I think what you meant was, in general, he's prioritising Muslims rather than literally being a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. But I have to say to you, in that respect, I agree. I think that I genuinely think if somebody stands up and says we need more black people or Asian people in positions of power, then inevitably I have to turn around and say we need a quota of white people. What would happen? I ask you this before we go to the break. What would happen if I said there is some of the best paid jobs in the country for working class people are Premier League footballers? There's an underrepresentation of white young people in the Premier League. Therefore, what we should do is have positive discrimination, which is that there will be a quota of black people in every team, and once you get to that quota, everybody else has to be white. What would happen? There would be an outcry beyond all
and
belief.
the football wouldn't be as good either.
People would say, how on earth can you boot out a more talented black guy in favour of... Well, look, if we're interested in quotas, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. What I personally believe is that we should all have the best people for the job and have national cohesion.
And that's actually what happens in football. It is a meritocracy. You want the best people.
But I was thinking about this the other day. How can you argue in favour of multiculturalism and also have this concept of cultural appropriation? I think it's this. I think the left has detected a danger. I think they fear that rather than having riots on the streets, what actually we're doing is trying to assimilate people moving to the country and to make them British. And in order to prevent the community coming together, in order to prevent national cohesion, in order to prevent people living in harmony, they've got this cultural appropriation concept, which is that you can't have a middle ground. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Andre and Ash, and we just take your call, 034... Shut up, Andre. It's 03444 499 1000, and it's time to look into the eyes, not around the eyes, into the eyes of Yasmin the Witch. And have you got any premonitions for us, Yasmin?
Well, I'd like to mention something about what you were talking about earlier, if I can.
Yeah.
It was about the Women's Action Group.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to
Women's
myself,
Safety Initiative.
Yes,
We had Jess and Saskia in earlier.
I think people need a more practical situation with that.
Yeah.
I think women should be allowed to have tasers and also mace. I think that would be a good starting point for it. Also, when you were talking earlier about Sharia law, well, if the men who've committed these crimes and have been sentenced for these crimes and they believe in Sharia law, I believe that they should have Sharia law to do with that. And I definitely believe they should be beheaded.
But in Sharia law, I think the woman has to have, it's four witnesses against the man. Even if a woman is raped, she can be stoned to death.
No, if they're in this country and they've broken the law and they've been seen to rape or molest somebody, somebody, then the Sharia law is that they would be beheaded in their own country.
There's very few, Yasmin.
I believe that should happen because they all want Sharia law.
Yasmin, let me say this to you. There are some crimes that it's just very hard to prevent, even with stiff punishments. As an example, people who are paedophiles, an example, it's quite hard to stop them by punishments. Similarly, somebody who's a psychopathic murderer, punishment doesn't stop them. Stiff punishments for shoplifting does work because nobody is sort of, mentally programmed to be a shoplifter. We think that the reason that grooming gangs did what they did was because they knew they'd get away with it, principally.
Yeah, but isn't that what she's saying? If you knew you were going to get executed rather than 3 years in prison.
Yeah, that's precisely... Hang on a second. That's precisely my point. If you turn round and say, right, OK, what we're going to do, in line with Islamic law, is we are going to behead people who abuse children. If you're Muslim, then I wonder how long this would last. Because you'd go, now, by the way, the other thing I would do as well, Yasmin, I've advocated for this before. I've said that membership of the group, we now have the idea of joint enterprise. So as an example, those police officers, those local councillors, those MPs, those social workers who have assisted in covering up the grooming gangs are deemed to be members of the gangs themselves. And the example I give, exactly the same way as a getaway driver is deemed to be an armed robber. And I think what you have to do is police officers, social workers, councillors, MPs convicted of that crime definitely receive the death penalty.
Well, I think they should have Sharia law given to them, like what they believe in, or they can be deported, one or the other. They can have a choice. That's it. That's the way I believe it.
Well, of course, the other thing.
I've been a victim of things like this all my life, so I know that when that happens to somebody, it's a lifelong sentence for that person.
So Yasmin, I just want to say this to you. You are a caller, not a guest. Therefore, you don't have to answer any questions because obviously you've come on here as a caller. However, what you've just said, do you want to elaborate? Because you are a sexual abuse victim, a survivor, rather.
Well, first of all, my dad was Muslim.
Oh, right.
And he abused me when I was about 4-year-old. I had to have reconstructive surgery. He also abused my brother as well, and he had to have reconstructive surgery. Oh. And the fact is, when that happened to me, luckily for me, I was put in a children's home a bit later. And then there was abuse in the children's home. Then there was abuse by my foster father. So I'm saying, if a Muslim commits a crime and they believe in having Sharia law, which Sharia law is going on all over the country, then they should have the punishment of that.
Yasmin, by the way, Yasmin, I completely agree with you. Some lefties won't agree, but I don't think. But let me ask you this question. So I think we all know the damage that's done by people who are victims of any crime, but obviously this is a particularly egregious crime, much more serious perhaps than things like burglary or whatever. But how frustrating is it that nobody bothers listening to you?
Well, first of all, I do think I did tell social services, I did tell the police, and they said they couldn't do anything because at that time they were scared of racial discrimination against the person who did it to me, obviously.
Well, that's still what they say now, isn't it?
And they said that it could cause race riots and things like that. And that was going back to the early 80s.
Right.
And so, as far as I'm concerned, there's two-tier policing right across the board.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, my personal opinion is you should... If they believe in Sharia law, then that's what should happen on a Friday afternoon.
But here's what I don't understand. And look, I think it's going to be hard for you to explain this either. what is the mindset of a police officer who has taken an oath to enforce and uphold the law to turn around to a childhood sexual abuse victim and go, hey, I really think you should continue to allow yourself to be raped, because the other option is there's going to be a bit of a kick-off with the Muslim community.
But they're not really worried about community cohesion. They're worrying about their careers, aren't they? They're not going to get promoted.
No, it's not. It starts at the top of the police force, and they get their orders from the government of the day.
Yeah, but why do they obey it? They obey it because that's where they get promoted. You get promoted that way.
Well, they always promote the idiots. Look at Starmer.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. If you go with the actual narrative, you'll get looked after, because I go, he's one of us, let's promote him. If you go against it, you get fired or you get run down. I mean, we've seen this. There were two police officers who didn't climb up in the ranks because of this very thing. They weren't kowtowing to the, well, as you say, the top of them are politicians of the police.
Well, the way I look at it, it is to do with culture. And the culture is that women, from my point of view only, I feel that women are treated less than anything.
Well, look, let's be very clear, and people are going to go mad at me for this. There are reasons why the third world is poor. First of all, you can say, it's because of a lack of natural resources. There are plenty of places like Zimbabwe that are incredibly rich in natural resources. There are two things that are true of every single poor country in the world: subjugation of women and poor government. And that's it. And actually, if you want to lift people out of poverty, the number one thing you do is give more rights and power to women to lift themselves out themselves. And that is true almost universally. Everywhere where women's rights have been increased, poverty has declined, and everywhere where women have been subjugated or dejected, subjugated, poverty rises. Just as simple as that. And so
also education.
Yes.
Giving women equal education.
Well, that's right. But it's all the same thing. So if you want to make Burnley poorer, you would adopt Islamic views towards women. Now, I will say one thing in defence of the faith of Islam, which I have a great deal of respect for. Extremists are extremists. You can interpret things in multiple ways. The reality is the Muslims that are friends with me would completely agree with everything that we've said about being anti-grooming gangs, everything we've said about defending women, everything we've said about the ludicrous idea of forcing your wife to never talk to her. They'd agree on all those things. But poverty is caused by subjugation of women and poor government, and that is the thread that runs through all these countries.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thanks, Yasmin. Kevin in Lichfield.
Hi lads,
how can we be of help?
Well, I've got to say, first off, what a great show tonight. I was actually going to come and give you some grief, but I just heard Yasmin's story. I just want to say, what a woman. Wow.
Yeah, she's great, Yasmin.
She should be so proud of herself for speaking up. We need more people like her to do that.
A strong woman, for what she's gone through as well.
But my original point was to call her about that you were giving the students a bit of a kick in earlier, and I felt like I'd defend them a little bit and correct you in a little way.
How can you defend students?
I live in Lichfield. We have a lot of students that come back, and they'll be coming back this summer. I've got a friend that's coming back with a 2-1. They'll be coming to work our pubs and our restaurants through the summer. They're not as work shy as you think.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
Are you sure about that? You haven't fallen for the false narrative, have you, that they're hard working?
No, they're great hard workers as long as their parents do a good job before they send them to uni. And I don't think anyone can disagree with that.
Yeah, but look what they study. I mean, they study things like golf course management, things like that.
But we all need a good golf course.
Well, that's true, isn't it? Yeah.
And there's good money in golf.
You put it like that. No, you're right. Yeah, students are great, aren't they?
But I think it was a bit of a generalisation I wanted to call you up on. My city runs on students running what are great pubs and bars. And if you ever find yourself in Lichfield, give me a call.
Wasn't Lichfield, isn't that the sports, where a lot of the sports people go to university?
Loughborough.
Oh, yeah, it's Loughborough. Yeah, you haven't even got that. You've got a nice cathedral, though, haven't you?
Cracking cathedral, but even better.
When I was at the end of my first year at Royal Holloway, a friend of mine said to me, you must come and stay with me in Lichfield. There's this new type of pub where you can get a beer so you can get a beer, a burger and fries for $1.99. It's called Wetherspoon.
The Wetherspoons is a shit pub. Sorry, is a rubbish pub because it doesn't let dogs in. Apologies to your listeners.
It's got wet bogs, did you say?
It's the only pub in Lichfield that doesn't let dogs come in to have a beer, and we all know dogs.
Well, I'll be honest with you.
Dogs shouldn't be drinking.
Having been to Wetherspoons in Slough, can I tell you there's a fair few dogs in there? Believe me,
drunk dogs.
That brings us to the following point, and also you guys also mentioned that all the students now are goths. They haven't been goths for years.
No, they don't do it. They don't have any youth culture now. That's why they all go.
I said they were emos.
But that's the same thing, isn't it? Isn't that the American version of a goth?
No, come on. All the students now that want to really freak out and be different. They're all part of the LGBTQ movement now.
Well, that's not different. That's actually, going with the establishment, isn't it? What do you do in Lichfield, Kevin?
I work in corporate finance, mate. Boo, boo.
In Callbox Finance?
Oh, corporate finance.
Corporate finance, yeah.
But no, the goth movement went from goth to emo to LGBTQ. That's how it all works.
Man, so just do me a favour, because we've heard this before. Yeah. Just explain what you mean by that. These mental health fads.
I wouldn't give it. I'd say that's a bit harsh, because when I was at school, it was the goths. I'm a kid myself that loves my music. I love the Beatles, the Who, Oasis, and stuff like that. So I got bullied for being a kid that was a bit different, and they got it as well. But at least I kept to my identity. I still will be going watching these bands this year. They all went back to their normal lives and went through that fad of wearing their dark hoodies and going I'm a bit depressed for a bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, and then it moved on to the emo stage in the 2000s. I'm a bit emotional.
And they had that funny hair that hung down, didn't they, and all that?
Exactly, yeah. Where you can't
get it over your eyes, so it's actually dangerous as well, health and safety.
Yeah. You notice it was only over one eye, not both.
Around machinery, incredibly dangerous. I mean, in my day, it was Phil Oakey, wasn't he? He had I don't know if you studied that in history. You're a bit younger than me, but yeah, he used to in the New Romantics. That people have been covering their eye with their hair for years. Don't worry about that.
But
it's always been
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle. Yeah. Well, no, she had a patch, didn't she? She had a lazy eye.
Do you know why pirates have patches?
Oh yeah, you said this. What was it? They kept it. What was it?
So basically, below deck it's dark, above deck it's light. So they have one eye that's accustomed to the light and one eye that's accustomed to the dark, so they can jump from deck to below deck.
Go ha! And they're all right. They don't get blinded.
They can jump, and they can see everywhere, so they know.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you'd have to get your eyes you'd have to get them accustomed.
And why did they have a parrot then? What was the parrot on the shoulder?
Because you can just get them in the Caribbean.
They could be your eyes as well, couldn't they? Because they could tell you what's going on.
And there's me just thinking there was that double emotionally emo. They did it to say they could cover one eye to see land and a bit of hope.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
yeah. Just
one last one, guys, before I leave it. You also had a lovely guy from Warsaw. I'm originally a Warsaw boy, and you were right. The Argos from the Sadler Centre is gone.
I can't believe it.
Mate, even the little rowing machine that used to be opposite the Argos, if people from Warsaw will know where I'm at, they used to have this beautiful animation for the kids and stuff like that, all got stripped
The
out.
rowing machine's gone. I used to love having a go on that.
Yeah, and literally now you go into the Sadler Centre, which is council-owned and run and rented, and because they've tried to posh up the Bescott. So the Warsaw.
So let me just say to you, Kevin.
The football stadium, yeah.
It's called the bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect is when young people who feel undervalued or stressed out or depressed, they will follow whatever the latest mental health fad is. So whether it be self-harm, whether it be goth, whether it be transsexual,
putting your hair over your eye,
what emo, whatever it is. So I don't know if you know that now that trans has increased, the number of emos has gone down. So has self-harm. Equally, when self-harm came out,
I'd love to know.
No, when self-harm came out as a fad, the number of goths declined. So there will be these fads. The real worry is that certainly with goths and emos, there's no long-term damage. Obviously, self-harm a little bit more. Eating disorders have tended to go down now. Now there are people who genuinely suffer from these things, but the problem is, of course, with trans, you have made physical changes to your body which cannot be undone.
I have to bite my tongue there because there's far too many appropriate jokes. I know it's after the watershed, but we might have to leave it there, boys.
All right. Cheers, Kevin. Nice one. We're going to take a little breaky. We'll be back with your calls straight after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk. It's me and Andre saving his voice a bit. We're just going to say.
By the way, can I just read you this?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. When I read this story, I thought, I know what's coming next. So, two police officers have been done with gross misconduct after strip searching a girl of 15 in Hackney, schoolgirl, who they suspected of having cannabis. It was described as traumatic and upsetting for the girl to have to take off her clothes. And I mean, she was down to her underwear, obviously. So then it says they were also found guilty of racial bias. Basically, this girl will have had all the gear on, and the minute the female officers tried to search her, they'll have said, "You can't search me, do you know what I mean?"
Well, I mean, you're meant to have the same sex searching you, aren't you?
Yeah, they are.
Right.
But the point I'm making is that she'll have had all the garb on, won't she?
What do you mean? What?
Oh, don't worry about it. Anyway, they've been done for misconduct and racial bias for searching this 15-year-old who was accused of having cannabis. Anyway, Grace is in London. Grace, you're on Talk.
Hi, I need to say first quickly, the best thing to say is condolences, sympathies to Yasmin. I mean, I just can't get my head around.
Sorry, condolences to what? Sorry.
I'm so sorry for what she went through.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
she's come out the other end. She's a strong lady. But obviously, some people don't after such traumatic things happen to them. And I'm sure she's still got, she's traumatised by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she manages to carry on. So what's up, Grace? What did you want to say?
I kind of partially concur with what was being said about women in some of the poorest parts of the world, but not entirely, because it sounded a little bit like you were suggesting that the only reason that there's poverty in the third world is bad governance and women being overlooked and in terms of opportunities or sidelined. I don't want to sound like I'm banging on about reparations or anything, but it is the reality that in the past, some people went from countries like ours and made a mess in some other parts of the world, and that doesn't mean that we are personally responsible.
But hang on. What is it? Is the reason that Benin is poor because we took their carvings and kept them for 150 years?
No.
I mean, the problem is it is the way of the left to say the only reason that the third world is poor and the only reason the West is rich is slavery and looting, right?
But
let's just be clear on something. If you look at Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, that used to be a wealthy country where every single person ate. They've had famines now because of bad governance. The reality is, we added a great deal. India has got richer and richer every year since decolonisation. Many of these countries have got poorer.
They kept the systems of the empire. They just took them over themselves. So in some ways, they were given the systems.
I mean, you look at the classic example of Gaza, which I mean is the most egregious example of aid.
Honestly,
But if you look at Gaza, when they were given that modern green housing facility, and they took it to bits within 48 hours, sold the metal and glass on markets, and then pulled up the pipes, the irrigation pipes, to make into missiles and rockets.
Yeah. I'm not really thinking about Gaza in particular, partly because everyone else spent so long thinking about Gaza.
Fair enough.
I'd rather spend time thinking about some other places that don't get so much attention.
So let me tell you, you didn't get the wrong impression. I am literally saying that the one thing that every single poor country has in common is bad government and subjugation of women.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to come at this from a particularly, you said that the trouble with the left, and I don't know where I am on the spectrum anymore. It's far too complicated. I think there are multiple factors that contribute to these things. A Nobel Prize in economics was won a year or two ago by a group who looked at how colonialism in different countries had different structures that led to different outcomes, such that indeed India is doing fairly well now. But
well, I mean, you look at the British Empire. You know, a lot of the countries actually did like the British Empire. It wasn't like the French Empire where they were really subjugated. They were different. The empires were run differently. Look at the Belgian Empire, what they did to the 1920s in the Belgian Congo.
If you look at as an example, slavery and looting. I think if you were to list a country that has suffered more from slavery and more from looting than any other country on earth, it would be, I would suggest, Poland, where the Slavic population, literally the word slave comes from Slav, because there were that many of them.
Everyone has been under slavery around the world at some point.
Poland has been invaded and looted about every 50 years for its entire history, and Poland is now becoming one of the richest countries in the world.
In many parts of Africa, the disruption that came about is what enabled the bad governance that you mentioned. There is indeed.
But who gathered the slaves? It was the African slave markets. Are they going to pay reparations?
But if you look at slavery and looting, there can be no doubt whatsoever that Poland has suffered from it to a far greater extent than Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe now is a solid gold shithole.
And also, we go on about the history of slavery. There's more slaves now currently in this world than has ever existed. The slavery market's right now happening.
Yeah, we do need to give that more attention. It doesn't get talked about enough. No. But I wasn't only talking about the history of the slave trade. I'm also talking about colonialism and ongoing extraction of wealth, because there's actually far more wealth coming to the wealthy world from the third world.
I understand that, Grace. Grace, listen, I will tell you, what you are arguing is a perfectly legitimate and reasonable point, but I'm going to stand by my point, because I think you can
I don't disagree with your point.
But let me say to you as an example, if we go back to Poland once again, or go back to... I'll tell you what, here's a really good example. Slovenia. I mean, Slovenia, in terms of the looting of Slovenia by Yugoslavia, it only stopped in, 1995 or something. So, and then you look at Slovenia in terms of the fact it was subjugated, in terms of the fact that it was regularly looted, and obviously, when you're talking about what happened in the Second World War, huge amounts of slave labour and things like that. The reality is, I believe that the arguments that you're making, which on the face of it sound entirely reasonable, actually are just a big excuse for terrible, terrible African leaders.
I'm not excusing African leaders.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not.
What I'm saying, I'm just saying that the things are very multifaceted, I suppose, and also that I agree with you that supporting women and girls is massively important on multiple levels. And I sponsor a couple of girls, and it can make such an enormous.
But what about? But let me give you another example. In 1948, the richest country on earth was Israel. Right now, let's be clear: Israel has not been able to loot its neighbours, right? It has not been able to take its neighbours in as slaves or anything like that. It's not benefited from a legacy of colonialism. What it actually has done is had a forward-facing, pro-business, pro-science government. Once again, the only place with mass women's rights in the Middle East, and it's gone from
mass gay rights as well.
Now, if you look at Israel, Israel has no natural resources pretty much at all,
apart from oranges.
I would also agree with you that a problem of some of these countries is that women are subjugated and overlooked, particularly in Afghanistan being a top example, obviously, but some other places as well. And I think we are very fortunate. It's complicated in India. Things are changing quite rapidly, but it has been the case that girls have been very much sidelined there in the past. And I do think that we are very privileged that we have been born into a country where the values are that human beings should be treated equally.
Well, they were those values are not anymore, are they, in this country? Different values. Well, I mean, look at what's happened to these working class girls over the many years.
Indeed, but it's not.
And working class boys who are, the lowest educated, they're not looked after. I mean, it's white underprivilege.
I mean, historically, and Tom Holland has written about this.
What, the guy who was Spider-Man?
No. Part of the reason that we came to believe that human beings are equal and that we should care for the disadvantaged rather than just think that might is right is that Christian values spread in this country.
Correct.
But we're kind of increasingly abandoning those values. And I think that we're going to see more and more disruption in society because we're more and more feeling that greed is good and we should just do what we want and put ourselves first rather than caring for the vulnerable.
Yeah, you're right, man. Thanks, Grace. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, it's Andre and Ash on Talk, and we're just taking your calls now. Going through, he's resting his voice a bit. Look, he's poor thing. He's having hot drinks, trying to sort it out.
I'm all right.
You'll be all right. You're all right.
I'm all right.
Hertfordshire Bob, it's your time to shine. Hertfordshire Bob, what's up?
I've got a couple of quick fixes for the migrant moonlight as delivery drivers. Number one, keep them in the hotels, at least you know where they are. You put them on a curfew.
It's on there against their human rights, isn't it, though?
No, forget. Who said that? You?
No, that's the ECHR saying that.
Well, let me just finish then. Well, number one, they should have, as soon as they put a foot on the beach in Kent, they should have their DNA tested straight away. That way, you can share the database with all the European countries, and you know exactly where they're coming from. If they want,
they won't share their data anymore. They've taken their data back home, the Europeans, since we
start our own. Okay, we don't need it. We'll just have our own one.
No, but you know what? All they need to do is on the app. Each time you deliver, you do a facial recognition thing on the app, on the Uber Eats or the whatever, Just Eats or whatever. And it does it that way. You know, they're turning a blind eye, these companies, because obviously it's in their benefit to have all these workers.
No, you put them on a curfew, right? Then if they break the curfew, you tag them. Straight away, you tag them.
Why don't we tag them anyway? They should all be tagged. Of course, it's against the ECHR to do that.
Because it's against the human rights.
Yeah, exactly. It's all their human rights. Well, why don't we just, not allow them to come here?
Well, no, I mean...
Just do what France do, tent cities.
Yeah, but they're going to keep coming here, so you need to...
Well, they won't. They will if you keep offering them 4 or 5-star hotels and a mobile phone, driving lessons, tennis lessons and all that. Of course they're going to come. I mean, Macron was right about that. Why are we doing that when, obviously, countries like France don't do that and they're in the ECHR? So what's going on there?
Look, I'd rather have all the bad eggs in one basket. I'd rather them in an hotel than staying next to your Auntie Beryl and Uncle Stan. Right? It's as simple as... At least you know where they are.
Mm. Not right. They're in your local town, at your
Robert,
local hotel.
Robert, what about
you
this?
used to go for your Sunday roast.
Robert, what about this idea, which somebody said to me the other day, that we've moved the border from Dover to Westminster? And basically what I mean is that there used to be people in Dover protecting you, the public, and indeed the capital from, crazy migrants coming over illegally. What they've actually now done is just moved that barrier to round the Palace of Westminster, Downing Street, Buckingham Palace, so they're safe, but you're not.
Yeah, I think the DNA thing is a good idea. I mean, I really do.
I think we take their fingerprints, though. I think we do take the fingerprints, yeah. That's,
Listen, I'll tell you what, you get nicked tonight for a real minor offence, they'll have your DNA straight away.
Oh, yeah, they will. Yeah, but I mean, they've got their fingerprints anyway, so they can identify them. We should do everything, take their retina scans, facial recognition.
Yeah, but you'd know if they was wanted for sex crimes in other countries.
Yeah, but we're saying we think they do it.
Yeah.
And you'd think, if they was investigating a rape over here, I'm not just saying migrants, I'm saying, if they do it for ordinary British criminals, once you come over here...
You are a criminal, effectively, when you break into this country, whether, if claiming asylum at that point...
It's not illegal anymore, it's called irregular.
Yeah, irregular.
Exactly.
I'm pretty regular myself.
But these people are these people are committing heinous crimes.
Well, some of them are more higher proportion than obviously the local population.
Yes.
That's just factual.
Work it out with your maths. Get your calculator out. This government has got 4 more years and they're coming over at least 200-300 a day. Now you work that out over 4 years. It's scary, absolutely scary.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you,
they're not contributing, obviously.
Yeah, but listen, we are one bad thing away from Armageddon, because sooner or later there's going to be... I'm not wishing anything,
Well, that's what the experts are saying. I mean, you were agreeing with the experts that, Professor David Betts, who was advisors to governments, says it's inevitable that we will have civil war. Do you remember when Elon Musk said it's inevitable, and Keir Starmer went, oh no, what a ridiculous thing to say. Well, the experts are agreeing with him.
So when you say civil war, who are the two sides?
We don't know how. That's the other thing. They don't know how it works. It could be between populations. It could be against the government. It could be civil disobedience. I mean, someone's saying these the ones chopping down the cameras, the ULEZ cameras. That's the beginning of this sort of people fighting the system.
Well, I think it'd be we're already fighting a holy war, and the Christianity is losing at the moment.
Well, some say we're already in the middle of a revolution. We don't actually realise it. It's like the old boiling frog. It's like the old salami slicing our freedoms away. I mean, we heard earlier, Jess, now she can't go out dressed in a certain way, and there's certain tiny freedoms, and we don't notice, and it's like the boiling frog thing. You don't realise until it's all gone, and we've actually passed that point.
Do you know what? You probably can't say this, but I put a thing on Facebook the other day, and I think I told you before that my cousin is in Tommy Robinson's inner circle. I mean, proper inner circle, and I don't think he's any less significant than Nelson Mandela for human rights. I think time will tell that he because he's had a lot of bad press, but he's no less significant than Nelson Mandela. That's what I think.
Well, Errol Musk said he'll be Prime Minister one day, but he also said Macron's wife is a man and he's his father. Anyway, let's speak to Quinn in Neath. Or is that Nice?
Neath.
Neath, yeah. What's going on, Quinn?
Well, it's this way. Paying the money towards immigration to stay in hotels and to give them all the freebies they want, I think the United Kingdom should go on stop, no more work, and basically just freeze for a few weeks and let the government pay us to have freebies for a change, for the tax we have paid.
Switch it round a bit.
Huh?
We want a bit of it, don't we, Quim?
Yeah, too right. Yeah, I reckon we should have a bit of it. I reckon we should...
Yeah, we want a little taster.
Basically just give us a hotel that we can put our feet up.
And we'll have a couple of migrants doing the show. Do you think that might be quite good?
No, that won't be any good to us anyway. No, because they're doing everything else so far.
What's it like in Neath, Quim?
It's very quiet at the moment, but to be honest with you, I have heard there's a lot going on in Cardiff.
Yeah. What's going on in Cardiff, man?
Well, basically, there's whatever's happening in London, like the
You've got it
market.
worse, haven't you? It's like, apparently it's really bad down in Wales because, of course, you've got the different local government there.
Yeah, but what they don't realise, see, in the past, years ago, when we first flew the red flag, which was up from Merthyr Tydfil, there was
That's apparently really rough, Merthyr Tydfil, on a Saturday night, because it's all full of ex-miners kids who've got so much energy to expend and drinking a lot, so it's apparently crazy in Merthyr Tydfil on a Saturday night.
Yeah, you're right enough there. But no, they had a revolution up there, didn't it? They started a revolution in this country, the first revolution.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. It was in the history of the revolution of the Morgans.
The Morgans?
Morgans, yeah.
What happened?
Morgans. Well, basically, the king and the government was pushing the taxes up all the time and charging the miners extra money for bread and sugar and milk.
Oh, I think I remembered it. Was this Churchill was involved in this? With the unions, and a man got killed when the police went and read them the Riot Act. I think I remember this was before he was Prime Minister.
Yeah, but there was one before then as well. There was one long before then. It was history time. It was long before then.
Right, okay.
It was basically the king decided to say, right, I'll tell you what we do. We calm everybody down. We put the taxes down. We try to make everything all nice and quiet. And then we find the culprits and then we'll hang them. And that's what he did, just to learn the people in Wales a bit of...
Absolutely. All right.
That's great. History with Quim.